Let's go. Someone says, maybe. That means I'm live. Let's see. I haven't done this in a while. Last time I used StreamYard to go live. Am I on? All right. Okay, confirm we're on. Close YouTube Studio. Last time I did this, we actually talked about MK Ultra, and it was with Marlon Brown, and I was living in a parking lot in South Charleston, West Virginia, in my trailer. So what we're here for is the Senate and House oversight hearing on MK Ultra. What time is it? It is. So we have 13 minutes before we go live. Before they go live. I don't know if they're going to start talking about stuff right away, if they're going to mingle. And okay, I can't get this to where. Hold on. Okay, I can't see this. Oh yeah, there we go. There it is. Now I can see my screen. Let's fix this. Background. You know what's unfortunate is while I'm trying to figure all this stuff out, waiting for this to happen, just to make sure that all the technical stuff is right, and you don't have to look at half of my head and half of two of my legs, the whole thing. I can't go back on and edit this live later, or maybe I can. Media assets, there we go. Okay. It's telling me to upgrade to customize my background. So I guess we'll have to leave my old business card with my website, which actually lapsed. This website, bardin.us, barredin.us. I've had the domain for, I don't know, 6 years, 7 years, something like that. Started this website, built the website myself, and I've been handing out that card with that website since then. I ran out of them. I think that's the only one I got left, but that's my background, and I have to upgrade to take me off of it. So I guess that's what we're stuck with. My apologies.
Is it 30th?
Today is the 30th, yeah.
The witnesses are Stephen Kinzer.
Okay, so the witnesses are Stephen Kinzer, K-I-N. How do you spell that?
Kinzer.
Okay, I'm going to look some of these people up as you're telling me this.
He's a senior fellow in international and public affairs. Brown.
Okay, I've never heard of this guy.
He's one of the witnesses. Tom O'Neill, another one. He has to be a journalist.
Hold on. I'm going to go to notes here and write these down. Notes. Yeah. All right, Stephen Kinzer. Yes. What was that second guy's name?
Tom O'Neill.
O-N-E-I-L?
Yes, I-L-L.
Okay. Who else?
That is the only two.
Huh. All right, well, that's in my opinion, that's not starting off very well. To have two people as witnesses that I've never heard of. Where's Kathy O'Brien? She's at home trying to restore her house that a tornado hit. Huh. So this guy's an author. Author, historian, and journalist, a former New York Times correspondent. The New York Times did a terrible hit piece on targeted individuals that was clearly paid propaganda to make people who are going through this, what he's about to explain, look absolutely batshit crazy. Okay, so this is my first opinion of what we're learning about who the witnesses are. Okay, why does okay. The screenshot says we'll begin shortly. All right, so they're starting something there. So let's get. There we go. This isn't a Rolex, by the way, for all you people that see this and say it must be nice. This is a Nodus. It's about $450 new. You could maybe get $60 for this watch on eBay right now. I found it in a storage unit that I broke my back getting it out of. So I'd say that because that always comes up in the comments. I had to sell the real one I found, parts of it, to make it through what they're hopefully about to explain. So this guy's an author. Let's see what his X account looks like, if he has one. Should I know who this guy is? Stephen Kinzer.
I've never heard of him.
Okay, so he's written a book called Poisoner in Chief, Sidney Gottlieb and the CIA Search for Mind Control. Okay, so Gottlieb is Kinzer, Master of American. Is this a guy that just like researched and then wrote a book on this and never experienced this personally? Huh. New York Times, Boston Globe columnist, senior fellow. There's a lot of Brown University, a lot of liberal stuff going on here. Historian argues that everything that has happened in the Islamic Republic of recent decades stemmed from the coup that Washington backed in 1953 against democratically elected government.
Brief synopsis on ChatGPT is he's an American journalist, foreign correspondent, and author known for his reporting on international affairs, U.S. foreign policy, and the history of covert operations. Some of his highlights: he has spent more than 20 years as a foreign correspondent for New York Times. He served as a bureau chief in places including Nicaragua, Germany, and Turkey. He's taught journalism and international relations at universities including Brown. He's best known for examining U.S. involvement in foreign governments and intelligence ops, including just a list of books that he is examined.
We'll see. Okay, so that's Kinzer. He's an author. Doesn't say anything about him ever experiencing any of this stuff personally. Let's see if I can go to the does anybody, let's see, I don't know how many people are watching this. Kinzer. Okay, I need to get to where I can see my comments. No, it's possible because, okay, we can remove that page.
Seems like this is one of the dudes that they bring up when something's going on, like CNN, and they have them like, this is the
official expert.
Yeah, this is the expert you're supposed to listen to.
That's what we've all been talking about, but that's what we're a little bit concerned of. We'll see what they say. All right, let me get to the comment section here. All right. Shows that that's live. My channel. Just got a few minutes before they get going here, hopefully. Okay, so there's 10 people watching. Make sure I turn my volume. Yeah, that down. Let me know if there's an echo. Hoodross 222 says, hopefully we get something real. So, yeah, I never happen to catch anybody's lives either. Jake Shields was doing a live, and the algorithm must have been blocking me from seeing that guy's channel over the last few years, because I would have definitely subscribed to it and already watched a bunch of his interviews, and they're good. And I went to his X channel, and he was already following me. I was like, awesome, Jake Shields, 1 million followers, was following my channel. That's kind of cool. So I messaged him. We've been talking back and forth. And you see this, Jake? I'll come on your show and talk about what they're supposed to be talking about here, which I already have the feeling that I shouldn't. Well, not that what I'm going to say. I'm changing the outcome of what these people have planned. But I don't know. Let's be positive and hope for the best. Got we the people up here at the top of the thing. Hopefully they mean it. All right, 30 seconds. If you're just logging in, can you guys try to share this? Anybody that's here, try to share this on your social media accounts. Tap the like button on TikTok.
Still hit thumbs up. It'll pop up more people shit.
That's right. Yeah, if you like this, that's right. You gotta like it. All right, 2, 1, go. Ah, they're running a little bit late. That's fine. I was running a little bit late today too. So again, if you're just getting here, is the Committee on Oversight and Government Reform for MK Ultra, long-term trauma-based mind control. Allegedly, there are 51 different MK Ultra programs. So that means that there are 51 different ways that people are tortured, psychologically tortured, manipulated, to try to change them into a different person, compartmentalize their brain. So that there's alters are created, and those alters can be used with trigger words, and that person can be used basically as a Manchurian candidate, a slave in different ways, somebody who can be trafficked, carry information, carry money, carry this and that, and won't have a memory of it because of the alters that were created through the long-term trauma-based mind control. Basically, sounds nuts or something that was on like a middle season of X-Files, which the first season was our real files, by the way. But it's basically a CIA handler who is given capital and a team like psychologists, psychiatrists, actors, criminals that follow a script in the targeted individual's life, the MK Ultra victim, in their life, sometimes from birth. Depends on the program, depends on their goal with the person. Like Kathy O'Brien, started from birth. A lot of other people, and they basically just insert traumatic events into your life. So bad stuff happens in life. Life is tough anyway. But then when you have a CIA handler, like I'll give an example, Harley Pasternak, I'll say names, this guy publicly threatened Kanye West because he figured this stuff out. He figured out he was being mind controlled and psychologically tortured and manipulated. And this guy, Harley Pasternak, just happened to be in the Canadian military and had a history with working with mind control. So Pasternak told Kanye that, I don't remember exactly how he said it. Basically, he was going to medicate him until he was a zombie, and how would his children be able to function with their dad being a zombie or something like that, threatening to put him in a mental institution. And so that goes on in Canada. That's their version of it. I have a friend from Canada that's on this YouTube channel named Stephen Shellen. He was in River Run with Brad Pitt, Gone in 60 Seconds with, what's that guy's name? Anyway, Nicolas Cage. And so he went through this his whole life. He lived in Hollywood. He was a Hollywood actor, but he's from Canada, lives in Canada now. Wrote, funded, directed, acted, starred in everything. This movie called The Spark, and it was the best representation of most of the aspects of MK Ultra. What a targeted individual when MK Ultra victim actually experiences. So Canada, United States, you've got just handlers and psychologists that work for the CIA figuring out what's like. You guys remember that video of the CIA agent, and he got caught on video talking about Alex Jones, and he was like, "Oh, we just give him a little nudge." What that guy's saying when he says we give him a little nudge, they spend millions of dollars of your tax dollars on with it for a group of people whose sole intention is to get their target to react in a way that will defame the target, make them look bad, get a record, right, end up with a felony because you're responding to the absolute chaos that is inserted into your life and the trauma and the loss, people you love, things you worked hard for, businesses you've tried to build, social networks that have completely been destroyed, been uprooted from the place that you grew up in and are now in some faraway land because you thought you could get away with this because you didn't know that there were 78 fusion centers in the United States that sent out all of your information to that team of people that I just explained. With the handler and the psychologist and all the people driving cars, following you in the stores, following you to your house, harassing you to your house, getting into your house, moving your things around and making you think that you've lost your mind. I lost track where I was at. Anyway, that's happening. 2 people. Oh, the Alex Jones thing. Yeah, they call it a nudge. So that's what that guy was talking about in that video, because Alex Jones talked about the thing that they didn't want him to talk about. I'm still kind of hesitant to even say on here. But anyway, the thing that happened where they completely destroyed all the evidence right after to make sure that it couldn't be investigated, that thing, and he talked about that, right? And they took all of his money. And so that's what they call a nudge, by completely destroying your life in East Germany, they call this Zersetzung, meaning decomposition or erosion. So think about that. Decomposition, what happens? A dead body decomposes. It just slowly erodes, eats away, yeah, decomposes. That's the goal of this. One of the goals. There's many. It's very complicated, but it's one of the goals. So erosion, slander campaign, financial, psychological attacks, physical attacks, legal attacks, slander campaigns, noise campaigns, honey traps. That's a big one. Male and female. They know every single
This
thing
hearing
about
from the
you.
Task Force on
If
Declassification of
they
Federal
don't go
Secrets
over
will
this
come to
part in
order.
the
Welcome,
thing,
everyone. Without objection, the chair may declare a recess at any
here we go.
time. I recognize myself for the
Now,
purpose of making an opening statement.
where's the volume?
This hearing is about
you
the
hear it
crimes
on your end?
committed by
You hear her
the
talking?
Central Intelligence Agency against the American citizens and the decades of secrecy used to conceal them. The American people deserve a complete and truthful record. The victims and their families deserve acknowledgement, and this Congress has a constitutional obligation to ensure that full declassification is not delayed any longer. Project MKUltra was not a policy failure or an overzealous program that got out of hand. It was a deliberate, systematic governmental operation that subjected American citizens, prisoners, hospital patients, veterans, ordinary people to LSD, electroshock, hypnosis, sensory deprivation, psychological torture without their knowledge or consent. This went on for 20 years on American soil, funded by American taxpayer dollars and authorized by the very top of U.S.
Let's just
intelligence
listen.
apparatus. And this program, when it did end, the men who ran it did not cooperate with investigators. They did not come forward. They committed another crime. They destroyed evidence. The documents this task force has reviewed are unambiguous. In January 1973, the director of the CIA, Richard Helms, prepared to leave office. He personally ordered the
Look, I
destruction
need
of
to pause
MKUltra
one.
records. The CIA official document in writing states, over my stated objectives, the MKUltra files were destroyed by the order of DCI
My computer's freezing now. You're in Here. Yeah, that's right. Doing it. Did it today. My audio is terrible. What? What in the hell is going on? Why is the video so sketchy? Hold that.
As the suicide of an Army scientist. He was not an Army scientist. He worked for the CIA, and evidence suggests that his death may not have been a suicide. So there could be hidden documents that could illuminate this case. I would also point out that in addition to searching for unknown documents, this committee could do a tremendous service by
Come on. My internet is completely crawling, and good Lord, I have to go back and go to the. So it wasn't supposed to switch to show you all my X account, and then I was just sharing this video on X. All right. Okay, I'm still live. Okay, all right, so we're good. So my problem was I had YouTube open and this open. It switched. The screen for me. So now I have to go back and find the link while my internet is crawling, and it is taking 20 seconds just to open up X. And this isn't like a standard thing. Okay, so go back to the link here. when Desiree Foley went to do an interview in New York on the, I don't know, whatever floor high up in the skyscraper with Edge of Wonder, they shut down the power on the entire floor before her interview. So I have YouTube Studio open, and I'm trying to open X so I can get to the link that I shared, so I can put this live back on here for you all. And it's going so slow that it won't allow me to even like go to my notifications. Isn't that impeccable timing for the internet to just... I'm trying to click on this link that I shared. Starts at 10 a.m. Okay, here we go. Here we go. Okay, let's click on that. Like I should have had this open immediately.
To their killers. The following night, Manson's followers murdered another couple in the same grisly fashion. At the time I accepted the assignment, I'd never heard of MKUltra, and I wouldn't for another 2 years after I'd missed countless deadlines, lost the assignment, and fallen down a nightmarish rabbit hole trying to answer the question I couldn't quite shake. How had Manson, a barely literate ex-con, acquired the ability to persuade ordinary young people to murder complete strangers simply because he had told them to? The pursuit of the answer to that question led me to Dr. Louis Jolyon West, known to his friends as Jolly. West was one of the most influential psychiatrists in America. During his career, he crossed paths with some of the most controversial events of the 20th century, including the Patty Hearst kidnapping case and the aftermath of the John F. Kennedy assassination investigation. In 1977, West was one of 7 academic researchers named in a front-page New York Times story alleging that the CIA had used American universities, hospitals, and prisons as secret laboratories for experiments involving LSD and other drugs on unwitting human subjects. West vigorously denied the allegations. He acknowledged that the agency had approached him, but insisted he had refused because he said LSD was too dangerous and unpredictable to be used on humans. He added that he limited all of his research with LSD to animals.
Hopefully somebody else is recording this. That
the revelations in the Times led directly to the congressional hearings held later that year.
Just paid my internet bill.
West's denials, however, were effective. He was never investigated, and his name never came up at the hearings. I'll spare you the long and tedious story of how my Manson reporting led me to West, except to say that I eventually learned that in 1967, when Manson transformed into the cult leader we are familiar with today, he and his followers were receiving free medical care at a clinic in San Francisco, where West had established a base of operations for a research project he was conducting nearby. After becoming intrigued by the allegations against West, I learned that UCLA, his last academic home, had inherited his paper following his death in 1999. Nearly 2 months and more than 200 boxes later, I found the proverbial needle in a haystack: correspondence between West and Dr. Sidney Gottlieb, the architect of MKUltra. The letters begin in 1953, just 2 months after CIA Director Allen Dulles authorized the program. and while West was stationed at the Lackland Air Force Base in San Antonio, Texas, where he was chief psychiatrist at the base hospital. In his first letter to Gottlieb, West proposed conducting experiments on unwitting human subjects, including military personnel, prisoners, and psychiatric patients at the base hospital. He then outlined the experiments themselves in 6 more pages that could have been written by Joseph Mengele. Using LSD in combination with hypnosis, West proposed inducing confusion, amnesia, and specific mental disorders in people who would remember nothing of their interaction with him afterward. He sought to develop techniques to extract true information and implant false information in unwilling subjects and to alter the attitudes and beliefs of, quote, previously loyal individuals. In other words, to completely switch their allegiance from one group or leader to another. But it was another sentence at the end of that letter that stopped me cold. These experiments, he wrote, must eventually be put to test in practical trials in the field. Gottlieb's response could hardly have been more enthusiastic. My good friend, he wrote, I had been wondering whether your apparent rapid and comprehensive grasp of our problems could possibly be real. You have indeed developed an admirably accurate picture of exactly what we are after. West replied that there was no more vital undertaking conceivable in these times.
All right, Jolly West was from Norman, Oklahoma, where the University of Oklahoma is, where a lot of these intel agents allegedly trained to do this type of MK Ultra, these MK Ultra programs, tactics, techniques, standard operating procedures, all this stuff. I lived in Norman, Oklahoma with my wife, my ex-wife, lady right there, for 2 years. Absolute bonkers place. And it makes sense that this guy is from there. Jolly West, the guy they're talking about.
There was another document in West's papers that had even more significant implications. It was a 14-page report that West wrote in 1956, just 3 years after he contracted with the CIA. In the report, West described administering LSD and other drugs in conjunction with hypnosis on unwitting human subjects, and then he made a remarkable claim. He announced that he had learned how to replace true memories with false memories in people without their knowledge. In other words, he clarified, it has been found to be feasible to take the memory of a definite event in the life of an individual and through hypnotic suggestion, bring about the subsequent conscious recall to the effect that this event never actually took place, but that a different fictional event actually did occur. If West's report was accurate, this was not the failure agency officials described in 1977, quite the opposite. It was, in fact, the central ambition of the MK Ultra operation, the means of gaining the ability to seize the control of a person's perceptions, memories, and ultimately their behavior. But there was still one more discovery, and this time I found it in the National Security Archives at George Washington University, the official repository of the CIA's MK Ultra records, which were released to Congress after the 1977 hearings. In those holdings was a different versions of West's 1956 report. The original paper had been replaced by a 4-page summary that did not exist in West's files and appears to have been written by someone else. His claims about replacing memories were gone. In their place was a theoretical discussion of LSD in dissociative states. The versions applied to Congress concluded that the effects of LSD and similar drugs on dissociative states had, and I'm quoting, never been studied. Never been studied. In the original report, West discusses observations from his own experiments, including detailed descriptions of using LSD to, as he wrote, speed the induction of the hypnotic state and deepen the trance in subjects. Those passages have been removed in the report turned over to Congress. The discrepancy could not have been more.
Why did that do that? I closed the other page, not that I closed X. Let's just go to house.gov. Come on, it's ridiculous. Sorry, everybody. It's frustrating for you. Imagine how frustrating it is for me trying to do this. This is like slower than dial-up right now. I pay $120 a month for my internet or something like that. And it's Tuesday morning. Everybody's the bandwidth shouldn't be down. Interesting timing of bad internet service. Okay. It's because I shared it from X something. This is there's a new person talking. Don't even.
Political appointees are right now overriding peer review outcomes to screen grants for alignment with administrative priorities. The proposed OMB rule will also severely restrict international research. We're managing an H5N1 bird flu outbreak that has more than 70 documented human cases. We recently concluded a hantavirus response that required CDC scientists working alongside Argentine counterparts. The current Ebola outbreak in the Democratic Republic of Congo is now the third largest on record and is outpacing containment efforts. This rule will curtail exactly that kind of cooperation that we need. NIH lost 1,112 PhD trained workers from 2025 to early 26. More than half of the NIH institutes right now are operating without permanent scientific leadership. The majority of its advisory councils required by statute to provide independent oversight have lost more than half of their members. The fundamental choice before this Congress is between a system where scientists make scientific judgments through accountable processes and one where political appointees make those calls instead. That choice will determine whether the next breakthroughs in cancer, Alzheimer's, antibiotic resistance, and pandemic defense will happen here, somewhere else, or perhaps not at all. I urge this committee to support a joint resolution of disapproval to block the proposed OMB financial assistance rule. That authority to replace peer review with political approval has not been granted by Congress and
Dr.
should not
Janesi, your
be.
time's expired. I'll be now going to myself.
Thank you
5
very
minutes of
much.
questioning. Thank you, ma'am. My first question is for Mr. O'Neill. MK Naomi, the joint CIA Army program that ran parallel with MK Ultra at Fort Detrick, appears to have been run with deliberate minimal documentation. Army records on Special Operations Division have apparently been destroyed. In your investigation, what did you learn about MK Naomi, and do you believe its activities were even more serious than what we know about MK Ultra?
I'm sorry. I didn't learn anything about those operations. I kept my focus mostly on Dr. West and his work. I do know that the only reason I found the documents I found was because Dr. West accidentally left them in his papers, and he probably did that because he corresponded with Gottlieb under Gottlieb's assigned alias, which was Sherman Grifford, and he addressed all his mail to a post office box here under Foss Corporation.
Thank
So
you, Mr. I'm just going to real quick go to
Okay.
Dr. Kinzer. Are you aware of anything that exists with MK and Naomi in your research? And if you could please press the button.
My understanding of MK Naomi is that it was a joint project between the military and the CIA. And there's a big difference because the MK Ultra project was aimed at seizing control of the minds of individuals. The Army was interested in something different, which was trying to use biological agents in warfare against entire populations. So MK Naomi is the place where these two goals overlap.
And that was the 1953 Frank Olson death. Was that in a way tied to that from some chatter that we had seen in?
Exactly what the motivation was behind the decision about Frank Olson.
So my computer is going haywire right now. I can't adjust the volume.
My next question is also for you, sir. Operation Paperclip brought over 1,600 German scientists into the United States government after World War II, including individuals who had conducted human experimentation in concentration camps. The CIA and military were aware of their backgrounds and recruited them anyways. In your research, did you find direct documentation between Paperclip scientists and the development of MK Ultra's experimental protocols, specifically the use of mescaline, hypnosis, and sensory deprivation, which were techniques also documented at Dachau?
Absolutely. Kurt Blome, who was the chief of biological weapons development for the Nazi government, came to work for the CIA. So did Walter Schreiber, who was the Surgeon General of the Nazi Army. I can just tell a brief story. When I was researching my book, I found what I think might be the first
Charge, and I can't adjust my
CIA
volume
prison or black
to tell
site.
you about
It's a
this.
nice
So the
chalet
three guys,
in Germany.
a guy
And
up
the
there,
guy who now owns it took me into the basement. He said these were the cells where the
was
MK
talking about me
Ultra
not having a
officers,
computer anymore.
working
My
side by
computer guys
side with
threatened
Nazis,
yesterday that they're going to ruin my computer.
carried out those gruesome
While I'm
experiments,
trying to
which were actually just
chaos
continuations
to try to get to
of
do
the
this.
experiments that
These
those
fucking people
Nazis
aren't
had
even
been
talking about
conducting
what they
just a
need
few
to.
years earlier, right down the road.
Just for timeline and clarification, these experiments were
We've
happening
all
after
seen
the
these
Nuremberg trials,
documentaries
correct? So
already.
the
It's on
CIA would have
people out there,
known
everything
that
they're
these were
talking
crimes
about.
against humanity.
I looked for an episode in which the Nuremberg doctrines were posted on the wall in some MK Ultra or CIA office, and I was never able to find any indication that those Nuremberg principles ever were even consulted, much less obeyed.
Thank you. My next question would be for either witness to comment, Dr. Kinzer or Mr. O'Neill. Both witnesses have written about the psychiatrist Louis Jolly West. Sidney Gottlieb, who ran MK Ultra program for the CIA, hired West as a contractor to conduct research for subproject 43, combining hypnotism, drugs, and sensory deprivation to create dissociative states, in which, to quote Mr. Kinzer in his book Poisoner in Chief, the human mind could be pulled away from its moorings. Following the assassination of President John F. Kennedy, West psychiatrically examined Jack Ruby, then in prison for murdering the president accused of the assassination, Lee Harvey Oswald, the assassin accused of murdering President Kennedy, Lee Harvey Oswald. A report emerged from West's examination said that Ruby had suffered an acute psychotic break. Can you explain why Dr. West in particular was chosen to conduct an examination of Jack Ruby alone in his jail cell with no other psychologist present?
Be happy to. West inserted himself into the case when Ruby was the day of the shooting, the day after the shooting. West approached the judge in the preliminary hearings and asked to be assigned to the case. He was refused by the judge. After Ruby was convicted at his first trial, an associate of West, Dr. Hubert Winston Smith, who was a psychiatrist and an attorney, took over Ruby's defense for his appeal. And he had already discussed
No one percent, no
appointing
charges
Ruby
are
to the
working.
case, or excuse me, West
Charge
to the
my
case. And as you said,
Okay. This is insane. I mean, just trying to get this done. I'm a trained journalist. I've learned how to do all of this stuff in the Air Force. I'm good with navigating through user interfaces, creating things with WYSIWYGs. What you see is what you get. GUI interface, graphical user interface. Just a funny name. Stuff like that. But I can't seem to get this thing to work. So I have to get another, it won't work from this. Adapter, but that one works fine. I can't put it on. All right, well, I guess I just gotta get what I gotta get. What in the hell is going on? Charged over here for a second, turned back on. I'm just not allowed to have my computer at my, trying to get me to crash out on live. Won't be the first time. Let's go over here. Wait, I just plugged it into that one. Same exact one. Okay, so if I plug it into that strip over there, it doesn't work. If I come over here, it's fine. All right. That makes about as much sense as these. Oh, because I can't plug it into my TV and see the fucking screen. That's right. Good job. The handlers and the psychologists that run all of these programs that they should be talking about right now. I don't know. Maybe they are. I can't fucking see it because I can't keep this thing charged. Let's try this again. It's like they remotely just close off the ports of for the charger, so it just won't work. Like won't. And I have to plug it on this side, so my screen is broken on my computer. So I have to plug it into the TV in order for it to work. And this isn't quite reaching right now. There's some people out there, there's some real psychopaths that are really, really enjoying watching me irritated right now. Yeah, see, it won't work on that side. And now the plug that I have to plug in to see my computer on my TV screen, that one won't work. I use these every single day, and they work. every day. So this guy's
to the Warren Commission. It was the first time he ever publicly was supposed to say what his reasons were for shooting Oswald. The testimony had to be halted because he was babbling incoherently. And as Arlen Specter, who was a counsel to the commission, wrote in his memoirs, he pulled him aside and said that they were cutting off the arms and legs of children in Albuquerque and El Paso. And he said he was making no sense whatsoever. West, in his letters to Gottlieb from 1953, discussed experiments where he would induce specific mental disorders in people without their awareness. A year before the Kennedy assassination, he publicly spoke in Oklahoma City and talked about his LSD experiments inducing
We're just working fine.
psychiatric breaks and psychosis in people with the use of LSD, which of course later contradicted what he told the New York Times when he said he never used LSD in animal experimentation.
What an interesting connection. I'm out of time, but I'll be now recognizing Mr. Burleson from Missouri for 5 minutes.
last thing they
Thank
want.
you, Madam Chair. Thank you for your diligent work on this.
Commentary on this.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for your diligent work on this. And hopefully we will hear back from the CIA on those boxes of documents that have so many questions about.
Those volunteer.
Dr. Kinzer and Mr. O'Neill, the CIA created MK Ultra in 1953, supposedly out of fear that the Soviet Union and China had developed mind control capabilities. Let me go back a little bit further. So one of my questions has to do with the event that happened in 1951 in August in France. There was a bakery that I guess the people that lived in that community, over 250, some say 300 people were poisoned from the bread. It was determined that that was LSD that was causing all of these people to hallucinate. Some people died. Is there any connection, Dr. Kinzer, to that event? And was that something that either inspired the MK Ultra program or the MK Naomi program, or is that something that we were involved in even that early on?
I would turn that question back to you. I don't think anybody really knows the full story of what happened at that time in that town in France. That the United States could have been involved, that this could have been part of what was then called Operation Artichoke, the predecessor for MK Ultra, seems to me not beyond the realm of possibility. There's a lot of overlap between the ergot enzyme that is the basis of LSD and certain rye and wheat funguses that can be used in breads. Was that something intentional? Was it something the Americans were involved in? I have my suspicions, but just based on my background as a journalist, I don't operate on suspicions. So I would love to see more investigation of that episode.
My next question has to do with once the program began. I think one of the most shocking things that we've determined is the Operation Midnight Climax that occurred in the early 1950s, 60s, where the CIA had safe houses. And there was, I would say, Dr. Kinzer, I mean, this is extremely disturbing behavior that was happening, where you had American citizens who were being lured into these brothels and then dosed with an hallucinogenic and then filmed during their sex acts.
Cecil
Was there,
has been either in a Hollywood movie
was there anyone prosecuted for
or
this,
a
for
documentary
these crimes?
that's old news about old
No,
MK
there have
Ultra.
been no prosecution
So I'm
for
hoping
any
the
crime
foundation,
related to MK Ultra, as far as I know.
people can try to
To
understand
me, the remarkable aspect of that
what's happening now.
Operation Midnight Climax was that there wasn't even the pretense of scientific
Every targeted
experimentation.
individual right now
The
watching
person watching behind the one-way mirror was a
It's a-
grossly overweight drug officer sitting on a portable toilet and drinking cocktails out of a pitcher. There was nobody there that was a scientist or somebody who had understood sexual behavior or human psychology. So there was no science involved in it at all. I can add a little footnote. When I was researching Poisoner in Chief, I came across a document in which one of the officers involved in setting up that program, Operation Midnight Climax, said that Sidney Gottlieb himself used to fly from Washington out to inspect the project regularly and always asked that women be provided for him. So
That was my next question. Do you
made
think
me
that the
wonder.
agents were involved in the sexual encounters?
Well, and could that have actually been the reason why the bordello was opened? There was no prospect of any serious scientific result out of that project, given the personnel who were overseeing it. So those CIA officers, particularly Gottlieb, involved in overseeing Operation Midnight Climax, certainly were able to take advantage of what it offered.
Thank you. And my last question, first I want to say thank you to Mr. O'Neill. The book Chaos, I checked it out from the Library of Congress and greatly appreciate your work there. I was intrigued by one of the statements that you made based on your research that the MK Ultra program, they were actually successfully able to replace memories. And because of that, I'm wondering if, and Dr. Kinzer, you can chime in if you have any knowledge of this. Did the program continue, and do you think that the program in some aspect is still continuing today?
You're asking if the program continued after 1973 when
That's
it was halted, supposedly. I honestly, that's a question I'm asked at almost every appearance I do. Is it happening today? Did it continue? I don't know. I can't imagine that it didn't, though, because the technology that they worked to establish over 20, 25 years and spent more money on than any operation the CIA ever conducted was successful. I imagine it's being used. I have no evidence of it being used, so it's a complete assumption.
Insert
I would just add that
10 minutes.
one of the letters to which Mr. O'Neill referred contains a quote from
Watching
Mr.
people
Gottlieb saying that these experiments were necessary, quote, in these times.
Doesn't think it
I
exists.
think it's important to put yourself back in that mindset where the United States felt that it was under such overwhelming threat that the loss of a few lives
Didn't say.
or a few hundred lives was a small price to pay. Commitment to a great cause is one of the most fundamental justifications for committing immoral acts. And patriotism is among the most noble of causes. It can be twisted and it can be used as an excuse to carry out research under the guise that this is simply research we're doing to protect ourselves against others. And I think that is a mindset that may still be active in some parts of our government.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Madam Chair. My time has expired. I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Burleson. I now recognize myself. Thank you to the witnesses for coming today to testify about MK Ultra. Dr. Genexi, you said you worked for the NIH, is that correct?
That is correct.
Yeah, talking right now.
And you left in 2025?
Actually grilled
That is
on
correct.
an important issue.
I noticed during your opening statement that you had nothing to say about the content of this hearing being about MK Ultra. Your statement seemed to be based more on your issues with this administration's attempt to reform and rein in the NIH. Is that a fair assessment of your opening statement?
My opening statement was talking about the destruction of the NIH and cancellation of grants and political control of the NIH.
Would you deny that the NIH had involvement in the funding of the Wuhan lab?
I don't have any knowledge about any funding related to the Wuhan lab.
So are you denying that the NIH,
I'm
funded
basically
the
here to
Wuhan
talk
lab?
about what's happening right now at the NIH and how we really should be letting science be driven by scientists and not by politicians.
Well, do
Because
you,
that's how we fund cures and make health progress.
well, with all due respect, ma'am, do you find it ironic that for years we were told to trust the science? And then in the aftermath, we've all found out that
Mm.
most of what we were told during COVID was a complete lie and it wasn't scientific at all.
The number one thing that I think that we're doing to destroy trust in American science right now is canceling clinical trials. In the middle of those clinical trials, this does incredible harm to the patients who are receiving experimental treatments, and it really destroys the trust that we have in how do we recruit patients for future trials if they are knowing that their trials could just be simply canceled for political.
All right, I have to pause here. NIH, for those of you that don't know what that is the National Institute of Health, and they're actually like the 6th branch of the military. Well, 7th now because they're Space Force. Whatever number, they're a branch of the military. They're like the medical wing, kind of. But NIH was definitely people in NIH. I always have to clarify. It's compartmentalized. There's people at the top, the director, and put the stuff down, and there's good people that work within these organizations, but they have shitty directives, right? NIH is one of the main culprits of the organized stalking and harassment, this MK Ultra that we're talking about right now. I have a video of a guy who was in 06. I was in Phoenix, Arizona, going to sales to try to find stuff to sell, right? Just to make a living. Shouldn't be messing with that thing. Anyway, I was in Phoenix, Arizona at this sale. I started talking to this guy. Turns out he was in 06, which is the same thing as a full bird colonel in the Air Force, Army, Marine Corps. Don't know what it is. Anyway. And we were having a conversation, and he started doing the neuro-linguistic programming, the directed conversation, trying to trigger me, insinuating that I was going to be stealing things. It's just like their standard operating procedure, what they do. They try to not stigmatize you, what's the word? Like shame you for something that they're creating in their head. It's nuts. You're like, I'm here to be a normal person. I got that guy on video admitting that he is a psychopath and he enjoys what he does. It's right here on this YouTube channel. He just said it. I was like, people like you are psychopaths and you're the ones that are ruining the world. And he was like, I am. I'm not going to do an impersonation of that guy, but yeah, it's his face is like the screenshot of that video. So NIH is definitely a big part of this, and I'm glad that RFK is on the top of that now, because that's where all that was occurring. And then what they're talking about with the Wuhan lab, a guy named Dr. Charles Lieber was arrested and was found with COVID stuff. And that's a Department of Justice report. So you guys can just look that up. Dr. Charles Lieber, it was like early in COVID. And he was, I think he was an MIT professor. Yeah. That got scrubbed from the news because of the Smith-Mundt Act and the controlled fake news and everything. But that's an actual Department of Justice report you guys can check out. So back to this lady saying whatever the fuck she's saying, trying to rationalize and deflect from the fact that, I'll just let her. What?
Reasons.
I don't think anybody up here would deny that there's never been anything good that's come out of the NIH and that you guys have done some good work, but you just brought up trust. Do you think the NIH has a trust problem based on how they handled COVID?
No, I do not. I think that the NIH is beloved by the American people because we know about the advances in human health and cancer treatments and heart disease and diabetes and all of the health gains that the research has produced.
Well, I think you're wrong, ma'am. I
That's
think the public has a serious mistrust issue with the NIH. You, do you deny that the NIH tried to cover up the origin of COVID?
I'm not here to testify about that. That's not my area of science. I have no knowledge of that.
Do you believe that the NIH supported masking and social distancing when there was really no science to support that?
What I'm more concerned about is what's happening right now to destroy the Biomedical Research Institute that has been the envy of the world.
Okay.
And right now, we're ceding our leadership in biomedical research to China. That's what's happening right now.
What about covering up harmful side effects of vaccines and the role that the NIH has played in that?
All right. Okay, the reason why COVID vaccine and all that is important is, okay, so this is my theory. I'll just say this is my theory. This is why I did this, so I can commentate on this exact stuff. There's a possibility that in that vaccination that people were given, that there was nanotechnology in it, just like possibly the stuff that's being sprayed or has been doing. Yeah, they're still doing that. Stuff gets in our water, put in our food. So you get these microscopic little receivers, antennas and receivers, transmitters, multifunction, right? But you can't even see them. That kind of stuff is in your cell phone, right? So your cell phone connects with the GWEN towers, the 5G, they call 5G towers, GWEN. It's an acronym, which completely coincidentally translates to "fuck off" in China, in Chinese, in China. But anyway, that word GWEN translates to that in Chinese. But those are what those towers are called, and you're getting video. Unless you're being hacked and they're trying to stifle your bandwidth so that video is choppy and it's frustrating and you lose track of what you're trying to think of and all that stuff. So that connects in real time. Like you can airdrop a photo, video to somebody, right? It's got the same technology as that nanotechnology that gets into your body. So if that was created in the place that they're talking about through this acronym, the NIH, National Institute of Health, and they facilitated that. So, okay, I have to say more in order to make this connect, right? Okay, so if they can connect with your cell phone like that in real time, they can connect with your body, and that nanotech is in your brain and your bloodstream. It's everywhere, right? And it's like a parasite, which I heard fenbenzodiol is good to eat to get parasites out of your body. That's a whole nother talk show. So anyway, if you got that, you have that stuff in your body, right? There's all U.S. patents for this, and it's been around a long time. This isn't some woo-woo. I heard this on the Lone Wolf design from. Anyway, they can connect with your body in real time, and our body is a positive and negative energy, right? We give off positive and negative energy, and it's not in just one way. So if that gets into your body, and then they can connect to your brain, and then as your neuroreceptors are firing neurons back and forth, telling your body and your mouth and all that what to do, and if you know, like I cut myself right here, that hurt, sent neurons back and forth going, damn it, man, that nail on that phone pole was shitty. It went right in your arm. That hurt. So that information is going back and forth. And if that can be picked up by this technology that I'm talking about, that can go directly to those GWEN towers in real time, then they could decode that information and know what you're thinking. So there's actually technology that's patented that does that, and it's called EEG heterodynamic, or remote neural monitoring. A guy named Dr. Robert Duncan either created this technology. I feel like this technology's been around for like thousands of years or something like that, and that's some other crazy conspiracy. But I don't. It's neither here nor there. He talks about this technology, said he created some of it or made some of it better, and gave a presentation to MIT that's still on YouTube. You can search full MIT presentation, and he in detail explains this technology that I'm talking about that has to do with NIH and also has to do with MK Ultra. Okay. Because if an agency, a group, wanted to control somebody, harass them, drive them down into like a psychotic spin so they just can't function, and then they become homeless, become a Manchurian candidate, become whatever the outcome is that's bad for that person that makes them go away, that group greatly benefits from that because they no more have OPFOR. Well, no, OPFOR is make-believe that, or opponent. They have no more opponent. They have no more anybody getting in their hair trying to make them stop the things you're doing, right? Okay, so that's just one aspect of the of how this relates to MK Ultra and why NIH is important and Wuhan and all that stuff, because of the technology I just explained to you and how that works. So that's one of literally thousands of things that I can explain that a targeted individual, MK Ultra victim, whatever name you want to give it, experiences and has to figure out how to manage through that and then keep moving forward. That's all I gotta say about that. Let's let this guy keep talking. I like this guy.
What do you have to say about that, ma'am?
The U.S. history of human subject protection has evolved greatly. Numerous research improprieties from the 50s to the 70s in the United States, including the Tuskegee syphilis study, forced Congress to establish formally federally
I'm not asking you about that.
mandated rules.
You know what I'm asking you about? I'm asking you about how NIH handled COVID. Obviously, this is supposed to be a hearing about MK Ultra, but when you gave your opening statement, and I don't even know why you were called to this hearing because you didn't offer anything about MK Ultra.
That's why they said
Since you are here and you're going to defend NIH, I'm going to call you out on it.
they're like, let's throw Karen under the bus, Margaret, whatever her name is. I think it's
Do you see now what I'm talking about when you say that the NIH doesn't have integrity problems and trust issues? Did you hear the applause in this room? That should tell you right now that you're pretty tone deaf to what the public thinks about how the NIH handled COVID and the cover up, not only the funding of it, but the cover up involved in the aftermath. Can you acknowledge that?
I'm sorry, that's not my understanding.
Who's,
the smugness on her. She's just like, oh no.
Thank you.
You
I want to acknowledge Ms. Bobert for the next round of questioning.
waste time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you
That lady
to two of our witnesses who are here to actually talk on our subject here today. Mr. Kinzer, in your book, Poisoner in Chief, you describe how Project MK Ultra was authorized by CIA Director Allen Dulles in April of 1953 as an umbrella program for research into the covert use of biological and chemical materials for mind control and interrogation. What specific geopolitical and intelligence concerns, particularly regarding alleged Soviet and Chinese, quote, brainwashing and Korean War prisoners, drove this authorization? And how did Cindy Gottlieb's unique background and personality and worldwide view shape the program's direction and methods and ethical boundaries?
Oh, dude, I want to go to a with a chick that can have a
Let me start by answering your second question about Gottlieb.
Get some coffee.
He was a very different person from all of the other senior CIA officers of that era. Most of them came from silver spoon backgrounds. They went to the same prep schools and the same Ivy League colleges and belonged to the same yacht clubs and worked for the same law firms and international banks. Sidney Gottlieb was the son of Orthodox Jewish refugees from Central Europe. He had a limp. He had a stutter. He went to Hebrew school. He was so different from all of the other officers. And upon reflection, I think this may not have been an accident. I think that people at the CIA understood that whoever had this job was going to be doing some awful, terrible things that would be very bloody, that they might become known, and it might be necessary to blame it all on somebody. And they didn't want to have to blame it all on one of their own. So Gottlieb actually became the person on whom everything was blamed. In fact, when he testified in secret here in Congress in the 1970s, he complained that there were documents on which various signatures had been redacted, but his alone had remained. So this, again, is a way of diverting attention away from the institutional responsibility of the CIA and trying to blame it on one crazy person. As for the international situation at the time, I think it's very important to understand this because there is a sort of a parallel to today. The CIA misinterpreted several key incidents in the world, including those to which you referred, the trial of the Cardinal Mindszenty, and then in Hungary, and then the return of Korean War prisoners. Neither of those episodes really had to do with mind control, but in the CIA, they were interpreted that way. And this gave the CIA a reason to pretend that its research was purely defensive. So I think when you consider the world situation and the sense in Washington that we're surrounded by enemies, that becomes a very dangerous environment. Conspiracy theories stem from the growth of the covert sphere. There's a great contradiction in American life that we pretend to uphold certain principles at home and abroad, but it's evident to many Americans that we actually operate in opposition to those principles, and we operate by secret.
In 1967, the CIA spent millions of dollars to put into newspapers, movies, on the radio, to have people just repeat the word over and over and over, because that's how brainwashing works. Is you repeat something until it becomes fact. And what a conspiracy is, if two guys go down to the convenience store down here and they come up with some idiot way to just rob that convenience store, they literally just conspired to commit a crime. That's how easy it is to explain what a conspiracy is. But the CIA, since 1967, coined that term to stigmatize you from thinking about people conspiring. They do it every single day. It's like standard operating procedure in our government, and they're getting better and better at it, and doing it on a large scale in small compartmentalized groups that people don't even know what the other one is doing for the whole thing. That's how this thing works. Good Lord, conspiracy theories. So yeah, I didn't just like read that on the internet. One of the people that I interview on this channel, John D'Souza, worked for the FBI for 25 years. He was the most decorated and most punished FBI agent in the history of the FBI. Got targeted by Comey, Obama, all those people, the same people that targeted me. Kind of why we connected, and he came to do an interview on my YouTube channel here. Sorry, I'm just like processing 1,000 things that happened in a short period of time right then. But anyway, there's an interview with him here on my YouTube channel. Check that out. I'll get back to that. Okay. He just said these conspiracy theories. Wait. Anybody that says that, I'm just like, man, where are you on the timeline of like waking the hell up? And by the way, remind me, somebody, I'm going to check the comments. So this, can you even see me right now? Anyway, they call it the Q map right here. Back here behind me, it's all the different colors. The purple part of that map is what covers MK Ultra. And I'm going to go over those different compartments and the different organizations that are responsible, allegedly. All of this is alleged, right? That I'm saying. I think you have to say that for the algorithm or whatever. Anyway, the purple part is all of what they should be talking, and they've covered, they should be talking about, and they have covered some of that. But if they don't, I'm going to cover it again. I don't know how long these hearings are supposed to be. This should take like a month, so I don't know. Yeah, let's just keep going.
And anti-democratic means. That contributes to suspicion of government. And the very existence of MK Ultra proves that some of the wildest fantasies about secret government research are actually close to reality. That makes the paranoid mindset seem ever more rational.
Thank you. And I'm going to have to cut off several of my questions now, but that was very intriguing, so I wanted you to continue. MK Ultra ultimately encompassed at least 149 sub-projects and involving more than 80 institutions, universities, hospitals, prisons, pharmaceutical companies, often funded through cutout foundations to conceal CIA sponsorship. Can you detail how these funding and operational security mechanisms worked in practice? And then just another subset, if I don't get back to asking a question, did the CIA or government or any of these entities ever say that what they were doing with MK Ultra and mind control were productive or for the betterment of humanity? Did they ever make those claims?
Nothing positive. Well,
as for your second question, I'm not aware, other than in private communications, that the CIA ever claimed that it had made great advances under MK Ultra, because it largely denied that MK Ultra ever existed. As for the foundations, yeah, these are Sidney Gottlieb created a couple of bogus foundations. They're called cutouts in CIA slang, and these are foundations that appear to be independent, but actually are fully funded and controlled by the CIA. It was those foundations that approached hospitals and clinics and asked them to become involved in research, particularly into LSD. So many of the institutions where these experiments took place did not even realize that those foundations were actually covers for the CIA.
Thank you very much. And Madam Chair, I yield.
I think they're in.
Thank you. I now recognize Representative Mace from South Carolina for 5 minutes.
Thank you so much. Dr. Janexi, you work with the NIH, correct? No, I am no longer affiliated with the NIH.
When did you leave the NIH?
April of last year.
April of last year. Did you ever speak with Anthony Fauci or any of your NIH colleagues when you were there about the NIH's role in funding the Wuhan Institute of Virology or the development of COVID-19 virus?
No.
Do you believe that the NIH or Dr. Fauci lied to the American people about COVID?
No.
Are you familiar with Dr. Fauci's statements to Congress about COVID?
No.
You didn't watch any of Dr. Fauci. You worked at the NIH and you didn't watch any of Dr. Fauci's.
No, I did not work at NIAID.
Okay. Do you think that the COVID shots harm American citizens?
No, I do not.
Oh.
Do you think that the COVID shots cause turbo cancers?
No.
Oh.
Have you read any, do you know if the NIH or NIAID track COVID shot injuries?
She looked at the ground immediately.
Or cancers or anything harmful from them?
I am not aware of any harmful tracking, and this is not my area of expertise, no.
What is your area of expertise?
So much.
I'm a research psychologist,
Oh.
and I did not work at NIAID.
And you're here for what reason?
I am here to testify about what is
In
happening.
my opinion,
to the
that's a
NIH
domestic
right now.
terrorist right there.
You're not here to testify about MK Ultra?
Now,
I am not an MK Ultra expert,
Why did the Dems send you here if you're not an MK Ultra expert?
but I am an expert in human subjects protection, which is related, and in the conduct of human subjects research.
Okay. But you don't know anything about MK Ultra, which is the purpose of this hearing. All right, so I have a couple questions for our witnesses who are here to talk about MK Ultra, and thank you, gentlemen, Dr. Kinzer and Mr. O'Neill. What are some of the worst abuses that you're aware of in the MK Ultra program?
not reacting like I'm reacting right now.
I can start by just naming, I'll talk about one in particular that always sticks in my mind. In the federal prison in Lexington, Kentucky, a group of African-American inmates was segregated and fed what were described in the protocol as double, triple, and quadruple doses of LSD every day for 77 days.
Did they all survive?
My eye
We
twitch.
have no idea
really
what
Okay.
happened to them. This has stuck with me ever since I wrote that book. What happened to them? Did they ever find out what was given to them? Did they think they were going crazy? Did they? I think if the
Do you think we're still experimenting on prisoners or people in prison today?
Veterans, soccer moms.
I don't have any information about that.
Okay.
I'm hoping there'll be another book about what's
Mr.
happening
O'Neill?
now.
What are some of the worst abuses in MK Ultra?
Cops, every profession you can think of.
There were many. The Frank Olson case, which was referenced earlier, that was a murder. I don't believe that was a suicide. And the motivation was because he was going to be a whistleblower. He worked at the CIA, he worked in the development of biological weapons, and he was planning to go public and announced that the United States government was using biological weapons in the Korean War. And also he was going to share what he knew about MK Ultra experiments, including lethal experiments. And there's a documented case.
How many, gentlemen, how many people do you think died through the MK Ultra program or were murdered?
No idea.
If those who died largely were outside the United States, many people were experimented to death in that safe house in Germany that I visited. And people in the neighborhood told me they knew what was going on in that house, and that people who were experimented to death are now buried in what used to be forest plots that are now covered over
Do you think
with
the German
apartments.
government knew what the US government was doing? Do you think there was a partnership there or knowledge?
Yes. There is a memo that was written by the German Secret Service to Konrad Adenauer, the Chancellor of Germany, telling him Americans are here capturing citizens, capturing people and conducting extreme experiments which are in violation of German law. And Adenauer decided to put that aside and not to
I
investigate.
have one more
further.
question, 'cause I have 15 seconds. Is this a massive cover-up by the US government?
It's certainly a cover-up of what happened in the past.
Mr. O'Neill?
Oh, absolutely, yes.
Thank you, and I yield back.
Thank you, Representative Mace. I now recognize Mr. Perry from Pennsylvania for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair.
Senator Mace, your
Thanks to the witnesses for being here. To Dr. Kinzer and Mr. O'Neill, I want to focus on the information that we do have and things of that nature. Do we know of, can you name the locations, say the prisons, the hospitals, other institutions, and the cutouts as you described, either one of you folks described them, that would be familiar to us or the American people? Can you name these?
If I could begin just by saying, at the end of the 1977 hearings, Senator Ted Kennedy and Senator Daniel Inouye, who were the co-chairs, demanded that there be an investigation to find out who were the perpetrators, where were the experiments conducted, and most importantly, to locate victims, compensate them, notify them, because many didn't even know they'd been experimented on, and give them lifetime medical care. President Jimmy Carter and Attorney General Griffin Bell said the federal...
They're trying to act like they don't know where the hell we're at. I started documenting and reporting on this shit on Veterans Day of 2017. I have sworn affidavits that are on record in Maricopa County Court for Karen Melton Stewart, who worked for the NSA for 28 years. Linguist, spoke like 5 languages. Gerald Sosby, who worked for the FBI for like 31 years, I think. He's a Vietnam veteran. He's an attorney in Texas. He wrote me a sworn affidavit. Both of them notarized on record in a case that I was in Maricopa County about this right here. And they're like, we're searching for the victims. Like 100 million views on my TikTok, had 207,000 followers. I had videos literally with like 1 million views. I talked on Caravan to Midnight with John B. Wells twice about this. They shocked the shit out of me with directed energy weapons during that, like in my groin. all of this should be talked about. There's patents for this. There's something just said they used that stuff in the recent war. They're like, it exists. So Kathy O'Brien has written 2 books on this. There's other people who have written books on this who have like verifiable proof beyond the shadow of a doubt that could only like a handler of like one of the masterminds of that's been in this program, been like facilitating in this program for like 20, 30 years could explain it as well as some of these other people. Where's Dr. John Hall, by the way? A doctor who has been on a bunch of other talk shows. Where's Jesse Beltran? Where was my phone call? I clearly can speak about this topic. Maybe this is just to get some of these people in here that are obviously going to cover it up, and then there's proof that they know otherwise, and then that way they can be like, "Ha, Dave Chappelle, gotcha, bitch." I don't know. Sometimes the strategy is, but anyway, what were they searching for? The victims. I'm still trying to wrap my head around that one. Maybe these people don't know how to use YouTube, TikTok, X, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, Craigslist. I don't know anything. It's out everywhere. This information. You know, like people are like, "Please help me." The TikTok accounts, YouTube account, like all kinds of people reaching out for help. So like, they're looking for the victims is insane.
Government will begin an investigation. That never happened. Instead, the CIA created something called the Victims Task Force to investigate itself. It was a 2-man investigation to locate victims, and they only look for people who had been experimented on in the safe houses. They completely, because I interviewed both of them before they passed away, they completely avoided institutional experimental programs at the hospitals. And you're asking about the hospitals, the Oklahoma City Hospital, Lackland Air Force Base Hospital, Lexington Addiction Center, which Dr. Kinzer referred to, the Holmesburg Prison, Vacaville Prison, universities all over the country, Yale, Ivy League universities. None of those records there was a criminal investigation was also supposed to start into Gottlieb's destruction of the records. That had been announced by the Justice Department. And I interviewed Griffin Bell and asked him what happened to all those investigations and what happened to all those efforts to locate victims. He said it just must have fallen through the cracks.
So it was the DOJ that was supposed to investigate?
The DOJ, the Department of Justice, and they just kept passing it off and passing it off.
You know if the DOJ and their investigation visited the places that you've named?
No, absolutely not.
No, wait, hold on a second. They didn't, or you don't know?
Oh, no. I asked the 2 men who did the investigation, and they said all we did was look into what happened at the safe houses in San Francisco and New York City in 1962.
So is it possible that information and documentation remains at the prisons, the treatment centers, the universities where these things were conducted? Is that possible?
Yeah, well, I found Dr. West's records at UCLA in his file. Hospital records are really hard to get because of HIPAA laws, and prison records, the Bureau of Prisons do have a lot. So yeah, it is possible there's still documents buried places.
What were the age?
What
were the average ages, if you know, of the people that were experimented on? Were these children? Were these middle-aged? Were they?
Well, there were adolescent studies done in juvenile detention facilities and jails with kids who were 16, 17, 18 years old, and at institutional schools for wayward kids. The National Training School for Boys here in Washington, D.C. had them. So it ranged from, I think, adolescent, pre-adolescent, through any age.
If you could describe, either one of you, the number of potential victims, if you could if you could hazard a guess? Is
There
this
were
hundreds?
149 programs that we know of that were subcontracted outside of.
149.
Holy shit. Okay, so I thought there were 51. Last count, there were 51, and I was always like, that's an interesting number. Like Area 51 is what they've done. 149 different MK Ultra. I'm even surprised with that. No, I'm not. Damn it! I forgot what I was just going to say. I had a point, and then that threw me off. 149. Oh my god.
And separate programs.
So yeah, outside. And that's what we know of. Again, everything we know of is minuscule compared to what was really going on. So, I mean, that could have been into the tens of thousands. And I believe that's another reason that nothing was pursued, because if those people were compensated, it could have bankrupted.
Has there been any recent attempt to find, locate, identify victims of this?
Not that I know of.
I would just add that there's been considerable progress in this regard in Canada. There was MK Ultra research going on at a psychiatric hospital in Canada, and the Canadian government has made a real effort to try to find out who the victims were, and also to compensate them and to provide them with medical treatment. So if we're looking for an example of a place where it was done better, even though it was on a much smaller scale, Canada would be a place to look.
So other than embarrassment to the federal government, maybe agencies involved, and particular individuals who are probably likely deceased at this point, what is the reason for the mass redaction of the information that we do have? Has any reasoning been given?
Shame?
I'm sorry?
Shame?
That's what I'm saying, other than embarrassment, but I think it stands to reason that probably the individuals involved in conducting and authorizing this activity are probably all deceased.
Sure.
At this point. Is there any reason to believe otherwise?
No.
I make those arguments in my FOIA requests, but it doesn't get me anywhere. I don't know about you, Dr. Kinzer.
All right, my time's expired. I'll give you.
Thank you, Representative Perry. I'm now going to go to a second line of questions. So I'll be recognizing myself, followed by, I believe, Representative Bober and either of the representatives if they'd like to join in. I wanted to elaborate further, Dr. Kinzer, on what you had stated about potentially there being bodies, the locations, Germany, because I'm going to reach out to the German government after this to get the ball rolling on that, if that is indeed the case. Can you just elaborate further on what you were hearing from people in that area, what they were saying, and then also to potential locations of bodies?
First of all, the memo that Chancellor Adenauer received is on the record. You can find that memo warning that these operations are going on. I did speak to people who lived in that area, and they all understood. Some of them had cooperated with an investigation by a German magazine, Der Spiegel, that called that house the CIA torture center. And in that article, it said there were deaths, but the number is not known. So it was a secret to us. But what we were doing in that house was really not even a secret to the people in the neighborhood. It reminds me of the bombing of Cambodia. It was a secret to us, but if you were living in Cambodia, you would have known about it. So I think there is fruitful ground for research looking into what happened in Germany and seeing what can be found out about these hugely destructive and devastating projects that were essentially systematic torture going on in this house and who knows how many others.
Just to confirm too, when you found the initial transcript with the chancellor or correspondence, was there a response from the U.S. government to the Germans?
No, the U.S. government would possibly have advised Adenauer not to pursue it, but I don't think Adenauer would have even need to be told that. He would see it, he would understand his close partnership with the United States made it impossible for him to criticize anything the U.S. was doing. Don't forget, this was not so long after the end of the Second World War. So no, there was no effort by the United States ever to reveal anything about what happened in Germany. And in fact, one of the FOIA requests that I made that was never fulfilled, and one that I would urge you to pursue, is what was Sidney Gottlieb doing during 2 years in Germany? He went to Germany and went to live there as a case officer. I was never able to find out what did he do during 2 years in Germany. There were huge numbers of MKUltra experiments going on in Germany, including a number that were fatal. That would be a very interesting catch of documents to find.
We will definitely be following up. My next question would be for either Dr. Kinzer or Mr. O'Neill. Declassified CIA records have revealed that officers deployed overseas have used USAID funding as an official cover, or USAID as an official cover for operational work that had nothing to do with the mission of USAID, i.e. humanitarian aid, medical relief, etc.
Yeah.
In some cases, CIA officers operated under USAID cover, engaged in lethal activity in places such as Vietnam, running assassination missions during the war in country from 1965 to 1975. And since MKUltra seems to have found its origin in drug experiments conducted on prisoners overseas, and first by the SS in Nazi Germany and then by US intelligence in camps captured from the Germans, do you believe that USAID may have been used overseas to further influence or further the MKUltra, for example, on prisoners of war? Since part of USAID's mission was to administer drugs to the poor and needy populations, would the organization have abused its mandate by poisoning foreign populations or creating disassociated states for interrogation or torture?
Say for interrogation.
I can't speak directly
Parallel
to
reconstruction.
AID, but it's certainly true that during this period,
On those.
after the Second World War, the United States was using publicly announced and official U.S. government agencies to carry out covert action. We now know, for example, that 5% of all of the money appropriated for the Marshall Plan was diverted for covert activities. A number of U.S. agencies were used as cover by covert operatives, and that AID could have been one of them sounds very likely to me.
And the NIMH admitted to allowing itself to be used for covert funding of MKUltra experiments in the 1970s when the operation was disclosed.
Thank you. I now recognize Representative.
Okay, I got to pause it right there. I keep seeing this seat that says reserved for witness. So I don't know how long this thing's going to be going on. It should literally, this should take months to go over. Like you can use all of that information. If this is done in one day, no, this should take a long time. I mean, not just so it can take a long time, it's just that there's such a mass amount of information, like testimony, and just it's to the point where we need to gather all of that and run AI that was like programmed by actuaries, like people that work for insurance companies and figure out odds and statistics, and people that work for casinos and stuff like that. They're the experts at figuring out if something is statistically impossible, or like the odds of that happening organically would be probably impossible. So that's how they would have to do this. But yeah, let's hope this takes. Well, anyway, that seat, that's where I just went off on a tangent, but I have to. Well, that piece of information is available to share with y'all, because I might not think about that exact thing for another couple of days or something like that. I'll get off topic. Oh, like I just lost my train of thought right now. That empty seat, if this does go longer, I'm making it my point. I'll go sit in it. I'll drive, not taking a helicopter or an airplane. I'll drive. Let me know. I'll go sit in that seat. And this is my YouTube channel, and I'm just like being me. I know how to be polished, Mike, like suit, and not, I was joking about the reacting thing in a setting like this. I just represented myself in court, did all the paperwork, represented myself in court. Was in public affairs in the Air Force for 9 years, trained to speak properly in front of camera. I do my thing the way I do here because it's just my own personal channel. And anyway, I'll go sit in that seat, speak proper about this. Just don't.
Burchett for 5 minutes.
Burchett.
Thank you, Chair Lady. Thank you all for being here. I remembered when all the talk about MK Ultra broke, and then they were talking about lawsuits, and there were lawsuits, and the CIA and the federal government said that this didn't exist, and then they came back and said, well, it does exist, and then, but we're not doing it anymore. I guess my question to y'all first is, which lie do we believe? Because, thank you. Obviously, there was an open bar before this thing started, so thank y'all. But Dr. Kinzer, hit your mic, brother. You're not on the mic. It's an old CIA trick. I'm just kidding.
I put myself in the place of one of those senior CIA officers, and I'm thinking to myself, like the ones back in the 1950s, well, other people must be doing this. We'd be falling behind if we don't do it. And nobody's looking over our shoulders. And that, I think, is your job. So I think there is a definite air of urgency and total secrecy. If any current research is going on, and if it's conducted in any comparable level of secrecy to the original MK Ultra, it's very deeply secret.
But one thing you said, though, it's going to be hard for Congress to act when they're so dadgum compromised. Let's just be honest. I mean, y'all are in the business of
I think they're making my notes.
twisting ears and telling us things that we've done, and that sways a lot of people up there. Somebody doesn't want to wreck a marriage or their business or lose this glamorous job that we have. And so I suspect that has a lot of play into it. Sorry to interrupt you. I apologize.
All I mean to say is that I think if there are such projects going on inside the U.S. government, there might be a sense that we can do this without any hostile supervision.
What are the possibilities that what we've learned in MK Ultra, now that it has advanced so much to algorithms and the computer and getting to loners, that some of these loners could, through this just mass propagation of whatever you're doing, could cause someone to maybe take a shot at a president?
I know there's a lot of speculation out there about the Butler shooting, and I guess even the Charlie Kirk shooting. I just hate to speculate because I don't know. I have no firsthand knowledge whether those guys were programmed through radio waves or through their computer activity. So I would never hazard a guess, except to say what I've already said, that they developed means that we've never been told about many, many years ago, and I imagine they've evolved to be much more effective now. So
let me interrupt you one more time, and I apologize again. But don't you think that they could cast this broad net through these algorithms and other things, and maybe they don't know the exact person it's going to affect, but they know what type of person it's going to affect, and they know it's going to happen, and that way they can't predict when it's going to happen, but they think it will happen. And then that way they can sort of wash their hands of this whole thing.
Yep.
And say, well, we didn't have anything to do with it, but in effect they really did, because they put this out there, and they continue to put it out there. Through what other method you're talking about? Go ahead, guys.
Quality,
ma'am, if you want to jump in. Okay.
Let's see what kind of bullshit.
Doctor, go ahead.
It sounds to me like you're describing something like the Martin Luther King assassination.
Yeah.
The FBI didn't carry it out, but it created such a climate just denouncing King as the most dangerous man in America, and putting out all this material about how he was helping communists. They must have thought, it's going to filter down. Somebody will take action, and then we can say we didn't have anything to do with it.
James Earl Ray was a third-rate thief. He made an incredible shot, 1 foot on a commode, 1 foot in a bathtub, leaning out of a window, basically, and the next day, or that afternoon, all the shrubbery was cut in front of the flop house he was staying in. There's a lot on that one that will never be discussed. I have some friends that were there, so I guess I could come on pretty close to firsthand knowledge. But yeah, I'm sorry. I'm probably going to get audited when I walk out of the room. I know it. So thank you. Chair Lady, I yield back my 4 seconds.
Thank you, Rep. Burchett. I would like to now recognize Representative Boebert for 5 minutes.
deprivation of rights.
Thank you. And I would love to let you gentlemen just talk some here, but when we're bringing up operations like Naomi and MK Ultra, there's Operation Mockingbird that was going on at the same time as MK Ultra, and it really ties into what Congressman Burchett was talking about with radio waves, where we have these like a Venn diagram of individual people and the military casting a broader net. So you have the radio waves, computer activity, the Operation Mockingbird, the programming that is taking place. So what do you see in relation to what was happening then and what we are seeing now that could be types of the same kind of programs and even using direct energy weapons or the like? Mr. O'Neill, you can begin.
Community policing.
I would just like to say one thing. There was an objective outlined in the early proposals for MK Ultra to do experimentation to see whether they could do mass conversion, convert entire populations. I think that had something to do with the France incident that you were talking about earlier. Again, today it's all speculation, but back then they were trying to use psychological means to see how you could influence people's thoughts. And Mockingbird played into that, which if people don't know, that was...
What are you not explaining? Okay, so what they're doing is they use something called hypergame theory. Dr. Robert Duncan explained this in a video. The video is on YouTube. And they use hypergame theory, which is they put you through a series of events that make you jump through a bunch of hoops. They isolate you from all of your social networks, from online, your family, your friends. They have a ridiculously good way of putting a wedge between you and the people that you love and making you all think that it was just an organic event. And then once they get the MK Ultra targeted individual isolated, that's when they, what I was explaining earlier, attack your finances, your reputation, your this, that, everything that I've explained for the last 9 years on this channel. And they are testing to see the maximum amount of time that their test subject will either become a Manchurian candidate or act out in aggression and end up in prison for 50 years, which they're, like how much ever they make a year, that's millions of dollars of income for that private prison contract. So that's, they'll get paid on that too. You act out in aggression, skip ahead, and become one of these Manchurian candidates that like they were just describing, which I believe those actually were orchestrated ops. That's a whole nother talk show. But when they get the targeted individual finally to crack and do something crazy, what did they do with that event? Immediately, they completely ignore the reason why that reaction happened. 20 years of nonstop like abuse and psychological, all the stuff that I've explained that these people go through. And then they put that on ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, Fox. It doesn't freaking matter. It's on the purple part. They all get their narratives from the Tavistock Institute, allegedly. And then they put that event on the news to put you in fear, which is part of the MK Ultra, the bigger picture here, to put you into fear and to tell you that guns are bad and that the gun was the reason that that whole thing happened and they're scary and we need to take them away from everyone. And then meanwhile, all these people who live on fear instead of rational thought, critical thinking skills, and discernment get into office. They're put in there on purpose. They're giving money for their campaigns, get in there, and then they take your guns away because they believe all of this Smith, Munt Act, MK Ultra, Tavistock Institute stuff that's going on. So you see what they're stalking, harassing, torturing, taking away everything that the targeted individual has worked for or loves in their life, and they make it look like it's a specific group. So that's the thing. They the people in the op that are doing this to targeted individuals, MK Ultra victims, they're over here and they are creating a false narrative, just like they do about you, of who the group is that is attacking you. And they want it to be XYZ group, right? They want the super liberal to think that it's these Trumpers that have like ruined their life and taken everything away from them, so they shoot the good, right? Or vice versa. It's like whatever is going to be working for them best at that time. So who the targeted individual thinks it is. I mean, there's okay. Let me clarify on that. There are people in targeted individuals' lives that TI knows exactly who has done the things to them, because they let you know. They'll just after they do the thing to you, they'll ghost you, but then they'll let you know like, I did it on purpose, and that's part of the trauma and the betrayal that's part of this whole thing. So they know those people, but going up the chain to the handlers and the psychologists and the people that create all of the virtual reality that the targeted individual MK Ultra victim is going to experience, the non-organic stuff going on around them, it's loony what they do, what they come up with. It proves they're absolutely psychopaths, and they all belong in those insane asylums that Trump wants to bring back. So I'm like, yeah, as long as those are used for those people who are actually the psychopathic like serial killers, because they literally are killing people with this. They're committing suicide. That's the other thing they want you to do, is to just end it. Splish, splash, toaster bath, and then nobody can hear from you anymore. So there's a video that I put on X a while back, and it's from a government website, the statistics. And I believe it was from the time the Patriot Act was enacted till now, 160,000 veterans have committed suicide. I might be wrong on that exact number, but you can go back through the timeline, check it out. This also has to do with that. So the Ultra, Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court, Department of Homeland Security, the way it was designed, they're doing some cool stuff right now, but that stuff is interwoven into their system for so long, it's like become standard operating procedure. And there's people that have been there for 20 years, but that's all they know. So all those people who are like facilitating those kind of programs just need to retire, and if not, be charged for war crimes like psychological torture on American citizens. Yeah, it's a lot of people, and it's very complicated. So let this guy talk some more. Man, what's going on here? Are we going to get somebody up here that can respond to this like I'm responding, and actually make some sense and point some people in some directions that can help them, like study this and like comprehend it a little bit more? Because it's tough to comprehend, even if you are subjected to it and you get to reverse engineer all of the standard operating procedures that are carried out on you. Like, you get to just learn how they do all this stuff. But I'm curious to see. Kathy O'Brien's got to be at this thing. If she isn't, this is like just
where they
I appreciate the people who initiated this, because this hasn't happened since 1975, and they just haven't even admitted that anything's going on. But there's no government officials here that are admitting anything. They're more talking about like history books and documentaries and stuff like that about MK Ultra, like they read about it and stuff like that. I'm sure they have some experiences or met some people, but just their language and their mannerisms, just, it's like, nothing against these people and what they've been allowed to experience in their life, but my vibe is, if I was talking to this author and these other people, whoever they are, about this situation, like, I would be giving the class so they could actually
try to put the information together and really comprehend what this is about, unless they're really holding back. You can get me, Kathy O'Brien. I don't know how much John D'Souza would talk about it. The guy's pretty damn smart. Stephen Shellen, Bill Binney. I think he just checked out. I mean, not checked out of life. He's just like had enough. He married a particle physicist, Dr. Catherine Horton. So she's. I do an interview with her on this YouTube channel also. I'm going off on tangents. Let's listen to this guy more.
Had CIA assets or co-opted people in the media who would write basically propaganda and try to control the thoughts and beliefs of the population to what the CIA needed. And is it still going on today? I would be surprised if it wasn't.
Sure, I think we saw it even during COVID with all of the NIH funding.
You said I wouldn't be surprised if it wasn't. He's just trying to kind of like dancing a little bit. How these people do. Another reason maybe why they wouldn't want me there, because I'm like straight to the point, like the German people. I heard they're like that. I'm like that. People call me autistic for it. I'm just like, no, I just don't want to waste time. And there's like a lot going on. Kind of like Elon Musk has such an urgent sense to like get to Mars. I'm like, there's a reason for a sense of urgency here for this thing to like, let's get this. Let's not dance around stuff. Let's invite some people that will just say it, regardless of how people there might get in their feelings and react. It's time is precious. So
that went to COVID and the Wuhan lab and then everything that came out of that.
I shouldn't give you guys such a hard time. You're out here doing this. I'm just. Y'all doing great. Some of the people getting questioned. Holy shit. So.
To make people believe in something that wasn't there. Dr. Kinzer, do you have anything on this?
I would say only that in the modern age, maybe radio waves and drugs are not necessary to control people's minds. We have such a great advertising, propaganda, press, social media collaboration that certain opinions are marginalized, and real debate is frustrated because people are not given access to full amounts of information.
So Patrick Bergey, Patrickbergey, was the oldest guy to enlist into the Army and make it through basic training, and was ridiculously like Tesla smart. I don't even know. But anyway, smart guy. He created some AI technology called ShadowNet, that when he was over in the Middle East, he developed that technology for actually one of the politicians was over there. And long story short, that technology that he created, that AI that he created, could literally sway an election in another country, right? So that's what he was told it was being developed for, to use this AI for social media to sway elections in other countries. And then what happened here in the United States? I was supposed to do an interview with that guy, and some wild stuff happened. Our interview never happened. Patrick Bergey, look up that if you want some more verification from boots on the ground, real people that have actually done some of this stuff or part of the larger picture. That's part of it. Bergey, hope you're doing all right, man. I haven't heard from you since then. Okay, now I need to play this video again. There you go.
So that's a way of controlling the minds of populations. It doesn't even require sophisticated electronic or psychopharmacological means.
Anything else you'd like to add for our next 2 minutes here? That we haven't, maybe you have answers to questions we haven't asked.
I would just like to reiterate something that I said in response to your earlier question, and that is that there's a reason why conspiracy theories are so widespread in America. It has to do with the disassociation between what we say we are and do and what we really are and do. This has become more and more clear to more and more people. Therefore, they're suspicious of nefarious dealings by the U.S., and they're also suspicious of other things that aren't nefarious at all. But there's just this mentality that is created by the covert sphere. And that is what makes people realize that things that used to seem really far-fetched are not so far-fetched after all.
Yes, well, Congress, we create these agencies and we even provide their funding. We appropriate that funding, and then they come before us often and are too big to even answer simple questions that we have and be held to account. So it does cause for a lot of deceit, a lot of doubt in the American people, and certainly within us as members of Congress when these agencies refuse to answer to us, the branch of government that actually creates them and provides their funding.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the American taxpayer, whose money is being stolen to fund all of their programs and agencies. So I think that would be another reason how these conspiracy theories grow, because government has grown so big. It won't.
Imagine owning a business and you get to the point where the IRS is telling you that they need a $16,000 check, and that's like what you have to use for capital for your business, but the IRS is like, nope, I need that. And that happens all the time. All the time. People can't write certain stuff off, and it's just like that's you've written off everything you can, and that's the amount, and then they're like, nah. And then on top of that, you realize that that $16,000 check that you're about to send is funding your own death. Like, that's going into tax dollars that's funding a program that you've been subjected to that is designed to completely destroy your life, make you look crazy, all the stuff I explained earlier. But to think of how that feels.
Answer to the people. Maybe they just think the people are too dumb to understand, but certainly we want to get answers to the people. And I appreciate you gentlemen for being here today. Madam Chair, I yield.
Thank you, Representative Boebert. Representative Burleson, do you have any further questions? Okay, I now recognize Representative Burleson for 5 minutes.
Mr. O'Neill, going back to Charles Manson and the Helter Skelter incident, can you explain how in the world someone who is an illiterate musician that seemed to be not exactly the brightest person somehow became a cult leader and was able to inspire all of these individuals to do crazy things?
IQ is easy, like one.
Unfortunately, I spent 20 years trying to find out how that happened. And what I was able to prove was that from the moment Manson was released from federal prison in 1967, he violated his parole, went to the Bay Area without permission, and was immediately put under the supervision of a federal parole officer who basically gave him leniency as he gathered his group of followers, gave them drugs, dominated them, turned them into more or less subservient robots who would do anything he said. All that happened under the watchful eye of...
Yeah, he was absolutely 100 full-on MK Ultra, the whole package, because media, they used media. It was him that made the people murder all these people. He didn't do shit. And they were probably controlled by the MK Ultra program. Well, he did some stuff, I'm sure. But yeah, 100% MK Ultra targeted individual, long-term trauma, slander campaign, full media support, probably governmental, not probably, of course, a whole bunch of governmental organizations that I just won't even name them all right now. Am I being obtuse, or I should get in the comments here and see what y'all are saying? I'm sorry that I haven't been watching those, but I've been trying to stay focused on what these folks are saying, see which talking points they're using,
and trying to understand where they get their knowledge from MK Ultra. And right now, it kind of seems like it's been from books, and all they care about is people with degrees that say this or that, and that guy's criminal record. When part of the entire MK Ultra program is to create a criminal record for the victim as part of the slander campaign. So when people so like this guy right here gets the chance to shit on an MK Ultra victim, which they're supposed to be uncovering like the root cause of why these people acted the way they acted and did the things they did, which Kathy O'Brien would be able to explain. I'd be able to explain. A bunch of other people would be able to explain. So I just found a disconnect from boots on the ground experience, wisdom, knowledge from all of that, as opposed to college information created by the CIA and whoever, deep state, to indoctrinate college educated people to regurgitate that information in front of the media that they own. Now, I'm not saying that's what's going on right here. It kind of feels like it right now, but this is on house.gov, oversight.house.gov. I digress. I'm trying to use all my fancy $10 and $15 words today. We'll just get back to listening to this guy.
A parole officer named Roger Smith, who was also doing drug research at the same clinic that Jolly West had set up his operation to recruit subjects. All the way until 1969, when Manson finally ordered the murders that he was later convicted of, he had been arrested repeatedly for escalating crimes, beginning with petty thievery, stealing cars, and then rape, attempted murder, drug possession. Each time, not only wasn't he prosecuted, his parole wasn't violated. So the federal government, in some capacity, enabled him to do what he did and flourish until these crimes happened. And in my book, I make a case, and it's a theoretical case, that it was part of an operation called Chaos, also with the CIA, that we haven't talked about today because it really doesn't have anything to do with drug research, but it was created to neutralize what the government believed was a revolution that was happening in America in the 60s, beginning with the anti-war movement and then the black militancy movement and the Panthers. So it's kind of a big stew of a cauldron of possibilities, that Manson emerged from all that when I don't think he should have.
Yeah, it's fascinating that you have an individual, Jolly West, who was working with this parole officer. You think the parole officer was making the connection so that the drugs were then flowing through?
Well, the parole officer was at the same time he was supervising Manson's parole, running a research project called the Amphetamine Research Project out of that clinic. And that was studying amphetamines and violence and drugs and group behavior and gangs in the Bay Area. Again, I hate to speculate. I know it sounds like a cop-out, but when you see the tentacles that cross paths with Manson when he got to Los Angeles as well, I believe that he was he was manipulated and at the very least given freedom to do what he did while he was being observed.
Maybe get him there.
And then the same individual, Jolly West, ends up
Get him there and ask him that in person.
in Oklahoma, correct? So that's where he was operating out of Oklahoma for during his time with Mr.
When he contracted with the CIA, he was at Lackland Air Force Base. He was a chief psychiatrist at the hospital, so he began his experiments there. A year after the letter that I quoted in my statement where he was describing what he wanted to do, a year later on July 3rd, 1954, a 3-year-old girl was abducted and found later in a gravel pit, murdered, and next to a car that had been abandoned. And the search party that found the little girl's body was approached by a man who was an airman at the base, and he asked them where he was and how he had gotten there. He was arrested for the murder and described by the military officers who had him in custody as being in a trance or daze. He didn't have any drugs in his system. He didn't recognize his wife when she was brought to see him. And at his trial, where Jolly West was his advising psychiatrist who examined him,
Of course.
it emerged that he had actually been being treated at the hospital at Lackland in an experimental program to cure his chronic debilitating migraine headaches. And he was executed 4 years later.
And then years later, he ends up
That's
volunteering
the kind of shit that
for
this
to
kind
handle.
of thing. That's the kind of thing this MK Ultra program they've used. I know they have done that. Bill Cooper, I'm pretty sure they got him with the way they do this to people. Bill Cooper was, behold a pale horse. He lived in northern Arizona. I've actually been to the town that he lived in. I lived a couple hours south of where he lived. Anyway, they had a bunch of teenagers run out to his property, and he went out there and confronted them, and they made it look like it was just like an altercation, and he got shot. And they're like, well, stuff happens, but it was. I don't believe that at all. I don't think anybody else does that has researched Bill Cooper, read his books, watched his videos. But that's one of the things that they have definitely tried so many times. The day that they set me up in Arizona, I'll just tell you this story. This was the day I was supposed to die this day, among many other days. Like, people wouldn't even believe me how many times people have tried to kill me. Like, it's become such a normal thing in my life that only the really bad ones, I don't even really talk about that much anymore. But that day that they set me up and arrested me and had a record all-time United States record response time, which is impossible, and an Avondale police officer pointed like a 357 or 44, could have been a 50 cal, whatever it was. It was a Dirty Harry gun, large chrome or nickel revolver. He aimed it in my head. After a guy pulled the gun on me, followed me to my house, and chased me through the neighborhood, who it turned out to be a former police officer taking part in that community policing thing, which is, it turns out they're hunting parties. And they set up the scenario that makes you look like the bad, or that tries to make you look like a bad guy, because they have the costume, the resources, and the government program that's under national security, so nobody can know about it and they can get away with whatever the hell they want. And then set up an op like that. But did you hear the kind of firearm that guy had? Oh, and then, by the way, they did arrest me that day, and I spent 18 months going to court, Maricopa County, wearing a bulletproof vest while they were continually trying to kill me. Like, I've downplayed it for so long, but that's exactly what they were doing. There's a bullet in that drawer right there that bounced off my fridge. I've repeated that so many times that I'm like, it's crazy that how much of this stuff that I have talked about publicly, and I've gone to court, and I can't get a meeting with one of these people in government from any of these places. Maybe because I'm still on that list, and if they contact me, then the government has a reason to go after them. FISA works. It's called the 2-hop system. So anybody you interact with, you message me, I message you, I talk to you on the street, I call you, you call me, you go on the thing. I don't know if that's happening right now. So and I'm not just going to stop interacting with people. So everybody that I know and talked to recently, don't freak out. If you're not like child trafficker or one of these people trying to deny all this information about MK Ultra, you should be okay. I'm gonna let this guy keep talking. I didn't finish what I was saying, but let's go.
Well, Jack Ruby.
West does, yeah.
Right. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
So just before we wrap up, is it in your expert opinion that Jack Ruby and Manson were assets
thing is
of
on
the
my
intelligence
eye, look like
agency
this.
specifically pertaining to MK Ultra? Were they MK Ultra victims?
Yeah, theoretically, Manson, I've never been able to prove absolutely. Jack Ruby, I believe, this is something else. The Warren Commission investigation, on the Warren Commission was Alan Dulles, the former CIA director,
Okay, this is all the
who
basics.
authorized and ran MK Ultra until he was fired by President Kennedy. The liaison to the committee for the CIA, who handled the information coming from the CIA back and forth to the Warren Commission, was Richard Helms, who was a direct supervisor of Jolly West. They knew who West was. They knew that what West was capable of and what they had paid him to do and what he had reported to them that he could do, including inducing mental disorders in people. That was never disclosed to the commission as far as anyone knows. So I believe that West was put in there to keep Jack Ruby from telling his story.
Still will get
Wow.
value.
In closing, I just want to thank you all for being here today.
I just watched John Mayer do I love John Mayer, guitar playing. I watch him all the time. One of my favorite artists of all time. Had Sierra Farrell, who's here from Charleston, West Virginia, where I live. Also, one of my favorite artists of all time. I literally messaged her and be like, "Hey, you want to come just like play some guitar on the front porch, sing a couple songs if you're in town like that?" So they did an interview, and John Mayer was so excited to do the interview with her, and you could tell he was like kind of attracted to her, and he just kept interrupting her and talking over her. And I know that's annoying, but he was like passionate about what he was doing, and he just so to be a good journalist, you learn to listen more. But there's so much information that I have to share doing this.
And we will be following up, Dr. Kinzer, on your request to.
Oh, I'm talking about that damn thing. I forgot what the hell I was. Can I go back without ruining this?
Who was a direct supervisor of Jolly West. They knew who West was. They knew that what West was capable of and what they had paid him to do and what he had reported to them that he could do, including inducing mental disorders in people. That was never disclosed to the commission as far as anyone knows. So I believe that West was put in there to keep Jack Ruby from telling his story.
Wow. In closing, I just want to thank you all for being here today. And we will be following up, Dr. Kinzer, on your request to fully redact. I'll be following up personally with the director of the CIA, the MK Ultra files that we do have. Also, as I noted earlier, there will be more that will be declassified, specifically pertaining to newly found records that were located in what we were discussing earlier. I did also want to just state that for the record, in regards to what statements were made earlier regarding the German government, we will also be following up on that. If there are indeed people that were victims of this that have been buried, we would like to know who those people are and who their families are as well, in order to correct the historical wrongdoings of this government. Without further ado, I would like to state that all members have 5 legislative days within to submit materials and additional written questions for the witnesses. It will be then forwarded to them. If there are no further business without objection, the task force stands adjourned.
That's it. What? Wait, when is the next one? Did they just say that and I wasn't listening? Let's go to the comments here. That's not it. All right. Let's see here. Oh, wow, that was tough to watch. All right. Sorry, didn't read any comments during this thing. I couldn't multitask that much. I had to really focus on what they were saying. Wow, there was a lot.
Okay, and for the people that I was like complaining about not knowing anything about this, that's actually, I'm doing this for them too. So I'm sorry to complain about y'all. I forget sometimes that's why I'm doing this. It's been a long time and it gets very frustrating. So I'm going to explain that purple part for those of you that don't know. I was just saying that purple part of that map up there. No, by the way, this psychedelic looking, okay, that thing, painting right there. When I lived in Norman, Oklahoma, that place that we were just talking about with the two politicians that were trying to end child trafficking, they both were found dead in their homes in Norman, right around the OU. That place is wild. There's some stuff going on. There's some also great people there. I always have to reiterate. There's some great people that live around the area. Oklahoma is awesome. Zach Bryan's from there, all that. But just in that general area. While I lived there, I owned, well, we don't own the building, but we started an art studio called Studios at 420 Main because that was the address, 420 Main, right? Wow. Crazy coincidence. Anyway, it was an old oil executive office, and it's all oak. All this amazing just finished work inside. We rented that place and turned it into Studios at 420 Main. It was an art studio. We had what's the word I'm looking for? The artists paid us rent to have those workspaces for monthly, right? And then we do art walk, and then my job was to market and get people to art walk so their paintings could sell, so we could pay the rent. And that's pretty much what happened the whole time we were there. And then when I was like, I've had enough of this place, let's get the hell out of here. Go to Arizona. Close that place. Now it's like Rubiel Studios, who was, I'll just say it. He thinks he's Jackson Pollock, and he just like throws splatter stuff. And I would not be surprised at all that guy works for like the FBI or CIA or one of the 18 intelligence things that we have. But he runs that place now. That's where that thing came from. That was painted by a guy named Rick Sinnott. There's all these stories I tell are long. There's a lot to them, and there's a reason I say people's names, times, and things like that. So that painting right there actually has to do with MK Ultra. The guy that painted it, his name was Rick Sinnott. He doesn't know that I figured this out a long time ago. So, but that's that painting is a representation of what they wanted to turn me into, like just Buddha. Like that's how certain MK Ultra programs work. The only goal of the program is to completely change the identity of the person they were before, not for any specific reason, but just to show that they can do it. And that was their research. And then whatever happens to that person, they're just trash. They're just a science experiment, a throwaway. They were told they're a throwaway, and then they think of their study materials like an animal. They'll call us animals, right? Refer to us as animals, dogs, cats, horses, ducks, depending on your personality and how you're reacting to the absolute bullshit that is introduced into your life. That was a shockingly entry-level amount of information. But again, like, somebody please tell me they said that was rescheduled, or like they're going to do the second one, like maybe after lunch or something, and then the next one tomorrow. And all right, so I'm going to switch these screens so you guys can see this, and then I'm going to get to work because that's what I need to be doing. Now we'll do this. There we go. All right, so this is that map that I was telling you about. And right here, the purple part. Okay, of course, it's Yep. Reflection from that. Anyway, the purple part on this map. Let's see. Is it possible to? I'll just read it to you. So some of the topics that they should be covering. Let me do this like I know what the hell I'm doing. Everything's got to be on the fly and makeshift for the like 1 or 2 hours that I have to go over things. Topics that should be covered in the next one of these. The Tavistock Institute, Social Engineering, PSYOPs, 1946, Tavistock Institute, by the way, since they're going back that far. Operation Mockingbird, not one word was said about that, I don't believe, maybe in between the all the technical difficulties that I was having. Anderson Cooper, CNN, Mika Brzezinski, so they need to talk about who her dad is and the books that he published. Remember all those books that we got in school that we had to put book covers on? All that. Oh, wait, no, that was Ghislaine Maxwell's dad. My bad. Brzezinski's dad was the propaganda guy. He was also like Israel propaganda guy. So look up Mika Brzezinski, Brzezinski. That has to do with what these folks should be talking about here. Media monopolies. I talked about that. I don't think I heard anybody there talk about. So media monopolies. Look up the Smith-Mundt Act of 1948. There was a law that states that propaganda cannot be used against American citizens. And then Obama decided that it was a good thing to revise the Smith-Mundt Act to make it legal, quote, legal, which is still unconstitutional, which he was supposedly a constitutional scholar. So how did he not pick up on the fact that updating the Smith-Mundt Act to make it legal to lie to all of us and create street theater skits and all kinds of crazy events that actually were false flags where people were injured and died and things like that for allegedly these media monopolies to create these MK Ultra events that create trauma in everyone's lives. All right. New York Times talked about them. Who did the guy work for? That was being interviewed, the writer. Who'd that guy work for? Back in the day, he was a New York Times journalist, wasn't he? And the New York Times intentionally created a hit piece on targeted individuals that obviously, I did a video on that specific article that they made. You know, I'm a journalist who has actually edited other writers' stories for Air Force, like went to school with all that. But I think I told you all that. I mean, not the people that already know me, but at the Defense Information School at Fort Meade, Maryland, you know, so trained by the Department of Defense to do this shit. The same exact school. J.D. Vance and I walked down the exact same halls. Fort Meade, Maryland. It's an Army base. Guaranteed with the jobs that he did, we most likely sat in the same classroom, just at different times. I'm older than him. Okay, so Gannett, 1906. I really don't even know what that part is. I say I'm an expert on this purple part, but I need to research that more. TEGNA, 2015. Associated Press, 1864. Reuters. There's a lot coming out from Reuters that I see that interesting lately. So the Hegelian dialectic is part of this whole thing that they should be talking about here, right? The Hegelian dialectic is the problem, reaction, solution paradigm. So let's just, for example, let's say that 9/11 wasn't just like some guys with some box cutters. It was a calculated event that they wanted to happen to terrify everyone and traumatize everyone enough to get them to not notice that the Patriot Act was an act that was enacted to take away our Fourth Amendment rights to searches and seizures. Okay, so they created the problem. 9/11, well, everybody freaked out. I was a firefighter. I got off duty the morning that I met a bunch of the people that survived that. And that was my red pill, how I ended up here talking to you guys. See that? So create the problem, towers, controlled demolition, 300 something of my brothers and sisters die in an incident, and a bunch of innocent civilians. Guy that I met who was an engineer, worked on the tower, was up there that day with 12 other guys, who was is Israel. He was Jewish, knew him personally. Still have his information and all of his stuff, and they pulled a pretty bad op. That guy pulled a bad op on me. That guy just happened to go get the first coffee of his entire life that morning. He went to Starbucks that morning, got coffee that morning, and all 12 of those people died. So I know a little bit about that. Okay, then so that's the problem reaction solution paradigm, and they do that with a lot of this stuff, and they make it obvious. But a lot of people have what's called cognitive dissonance. This is still part of the purple part that is making MKUltra, that makes MKUltra and makes it work. Cognitive dissonance is one of the main things that keeps it going. And people are just like, I'd rather not talk about that. It will destroy my false sense of reality, and things could get uncomfortable. So people just, cognitive dissonance for them is a good like defense mechanism to just ignore anything that's going on that doesn't affect their cubicle, their group, their whatever. Nothing wrong with cubicles. I've worked in them before. So I'm just example. I want the cubicle mafia to be coming after me. Those guys have got some trauma going on working in corporate America. Frick's sake. Okay, dissociative identity disorder, ritual abuse, altars. They covered some of that. They didn't talk about how the altars are created, like I just explained. Patsies, they did talk about that. They talked about the JFK thing a little bit. And the guy that's a former Navy SEAL asked some good questions. So I think they're just trying to scratch the surface of that. For the love of God, please let that be the case, that they're going to keep going on that, because it's all right. Anyway, so dissociative identity disorder, like we were saying earlier, I was saying, is created through long-term trauma-based events that are not organic and are funded by your tax dollars and are carried out by a handler, operatives, a psychologist and or psychiatrist that creates a game plan with using hyper game theory. Okay, just like Dr. Duncan explained on videos that I have shared here and on TikTok. I think they deleted the one from TikTok, my 207,000 followers. Anyway, that's part of that. They were talking about LSD, 25, Prozac, benzos, so triggers, handlers, trauma-based mind control, right there, that part. Handlers, triggers. Triggers are like what I was talking about, the guy talking to Alex Jones, or talking about Alex Jones, saying that they're going to give him a little nudge, right? So those are the triggers. So like right now, there's a siren going off that I would very highly doubt that they're going on a call. This video is live. A lot of times they'll use first responders to harass me because I was one, and it's just like the ultimate, like just kicking the balls. They have people that you would have like jumped on a grenade for, or risked your life pulling them out when they went down, and, do this to you. So that'd be an example of a trigger. And then the reason that they use all of these psychotropic and SSRI drugs is this. It goes back to what I was talking about earlier. Your neuroreceptors that fire the neurons back and forth, those inhibit that. They put a wall between those, so you are easier to control. It's like the opposite effect of cannabis, what cannabis does for people. And it opens those up. It opens those neurons, and they just fire, regardless of what people, or boomers have tried to tell you, that try to prescribe veterans opiates that are going to put them in the ground, as opposed to prescribing them cannabis, which in my personal opinion, I'd say this isn't like medical advice or anything. The survival rate of veterans through the VA, if they were prescribed that, as opposed to all this other shit that we're just talking about that make the mind control easier to conduct. And when the cannabis does the complete opposite, listen to Kathy O'Brien, the person that all of us tried to get onto this panel. She should have been sitting in one of those seats. she would have shut that thing down. They'd be like, okay, nobody else needs to talk. Just let's listen for a week straight and try to not lose their minds from all of the information that that lady can convey from what she's been through. That'd be the end of it. Like all of this would be explained. It needs to be more than that, but I'm just saying. Okay, so that's why those medications are important in this thing. I'm talking about methadone, Suboxone, all of that stuff. Allegedly, as part of this. Okay, the next name on this, right under, okay, so trauma-based mind control, depatterning and psychic driving. Depatterning and psychic driving. Those things that I was just talking about. Okay, so that's depatterning and psychic driving, the mind control. That's like the facilitating all of the things they do to break somebody, to control them, their decisions and their reactions, actions and reactions. Next name is Kathy O'Brien, the lady I was just talking about. Look her up on X. Look me up on X. We both follow each other. She's been on the 1,000 Pieces documentary with John D'Souza. She's written 2 books on this. She's your go-to. Bryce Taylor? I should know who that is. I don't know who Bryce Taylor is. Okay, so that's Gannett 1906, TEGNA 2015, and Bryce Taylor that I need to research so I can finish my knowledge of this. Anyway, from all of this stuff with the psychotropic, you guys can't even see this thing. Anyway, with psychotropics and SSRI, it goes off to this. It says Manchurian Candidate. So Lee Harvey Oswald, who they were talking about, lone wolf gunman, Sirhan, MK Ultra, murdered in 1968. Charles Manson, they covered him. OTO, Solar Lodge, 1969, Helter Skelter. Beta Sex Kitten. So that's Kathy O'Brien, explains that in detail, how that's facilitated and how they use it. And definitely have had a couple girlfriends that were that. And they were the ones telling me that, not me. Well, I figured it out. That's a whole nother talk show. But yeah, I've literally had conversations with other MK Ultra victims or very good acting feds. I still don't know on a few of them. I'm pretty sure on most, but both possibly, because who would be great in a position that you need somebody to be controlled, that has power, right? Put them in the CIA, put them in the FBI. I mean, it's a plausible possibility, isn't it? So Beta Sex Kittens, Jonestown Kool-Aid. So that was like a Hale-Bopp comet flew over, and that guy, everybody was wearing like Nikes instead of jumpsuits, and they all drank the Kool-Aid and they died. So like he brainwashed them into thinking that if they drank this Kool-Aid, it was like a magic potion that was going to land them on the comet that flew over, and they would all be able to get the F out of here and live on a colony on that comet or something like that. I think I got close on that one. But they drank the Kool-Aid and they were like, boom. Watch. News twist, 20 years down the road, those people are like doing videos from their comet and they're like having a great old time. You got like banjos and shit. Anyway, Jonestown Kool-Aid, yeah, that. Oh, Race War, that one, Race War, perfect on here. If they do not cover the Southern Poverty Law Center funding the KKK and like white supremacist groups and creating these false narratives, like when they walked the Patriot Front down Main Street here in Charleston, West Virginia, and all those guys wearing like khakis and collared shirts and masks, and all of us like MAGA people are like, or conspiracy people, right, that are just like looking at all of this stuff going, what the hell's going on? And me being the former like military, and I've worked around feds and I know some of them, and there's just like a certain way sometimes to dress. Like when I put a collared shirt on, sometimes I'm like, God damn it, they're gonna know. Right. So I wear my Vans and just anyway, because I don't want to be perceived as that I'm a veteran. Anyway, I would work for them if they, but they would. There's no way Anyway, that's what they got going on with that. Those people got fun. And it's not just like some on a fringe podcast. It's 11 of them got indicted. 11 of them got convicted. There's DOJ reports. They're going through the whole thing right now. Go check that out and fact check me on that to make sure that I'm not being part of the MK Ultra process and sharing fake news. Okay, so fact check me on all of this. Don't believe a word I say. Actually, I told some people that yesterday. I tell people this all the time. Don't believe anything anybody says until you do your own research on what they told you, get some information from them, use your own critical thinking skills and discernment. And it's not easy to do. It takes time and effort, and that's why most people don't do that. They just have cognitive dissonance. But you have to. If you're going to take the red pill and you can actually live in reality, not just the Truman Show where you just like wear the clothes you're told and go do the thing you're told and say the things you say, and you don't know why. You only do it because of your GS grade position or your gift card that's funneled through William Patrick Cox, which is a private company in Florida that was responsible for all of the remuneration for organized stalking and harassment, community policing, payments for taking part in this right here, allegedly. Okay, so race war, and that goes on and on and on. They're trying to get all of us divided. They want white people to hate black people to hate white people, and they fund it highly. Fund it highly. I have absolute proof of that. Well, with what I just told you with the SLPC, but other stuff. Ruby Ridge, 1992. Lloyd Finicum was shot. That was over the Bundy Ranch. The allegedly CCP infiltrated our government and was trying to take that BLM land, which ironically is the same acronym as the people who have been taking part in some of this chaos and destruction for gift cards and things like that, protected by George Soros implanted district attorneys and judges. But anyway, Lloyd Finicum was shot and killed and had like 6-7 kids. And they were just ranchers. They were actually from Levine, Arizona, which was a town just adjacent to Avondale, Arizona, where I lived for 9 years. And that was like ranch country out there. And that's where those guys were from originally. And they were trying to do their thing. And they just tried to steal the land that was supposed to be shared by anybody. It's legal for them to go grazing out there, but then somebody sold out our country and Lloyd Finicum got shot. I honestly don't know how that connects to MK Ultra. Anyway, gun grabs. Okay, so here's what I was talking about earlier when they stalk and harass and just do all of the things that I told you to, like a veteran, like somebody that went to Afghanistan and they fought in the war, and because they have combat experience. In 2009, they had updated watch list and guidance. I'm sorry, 2009 Department of Homeland Security changed their targeting, their domestic terrorist targeting list, and it basically encompassed everyone, but they put veterans that have combat experience. So all of the men and women that just went to Iraq and Afghanistan, you get like oil and opium, and we have the largest opioid epidemic ever directly after that. You know, I'm just pointing out some opinions that I have. And anyway, that so when those people, they put them directly on the Department of Homeland Security watch list, Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Corp. Maybe I'm wrong. They do something else. I don't know. I've only been experiencing this and documenting it for 9 years. So it seems to me that that's what's happening with them. And then they go act out in aggression because they think it's this one group that's doing it. And it's like the Trump people. They think it's Trump people, or they think it's the BLM people. Or like I said, it doesn't matter. They just want somebody to go after somebody. Usually the people that they want them to go after are like the people funding it because they want themselves to look like the victim, and they're experts at creating a narrative to show that they're the victim, and the people that they're systematically stalking and harassing with this are the issue. And like I said, immediately they are salivating for somebody to shoot. So you know how many times they have tried to get a gun in my hands in the last few months? Like making it completely just, which I want one in my hands, but just like John Kiriakou, you know, I received a deep state issued felony and I actually obey the law. So I have to be patient and just not be safe in my own home, even though I have, you know, got like metal 2 on my uniform for small arms expert. I should have them. So anyway, yeah, I'm completely helpless at my house. You want my address? It's on a bunch of my videos. Gun grabs. What do they do with those? As soon as one of those events takes place, goes to the news, and they're like, "Look at this black assault rifle. That's scary. We need to take those from everyone." And then all the other ones. I lived in California. They were taking. I went to buy something for my wife at the time for her to protect herself. We lived in the Central Valley at Fresno, you know, Fresno. So we tried to buy her a 380. That was on the list that they're taking away. So they, you know, the more of these that they have, the more of that they get to do, and the more chance of other countries finally going, we could go now. That's the thing that's kept us from, you know, Japan didn't invade because of that. There was a rifle behind every blade of grass. Russian generals literally said, no, we could get there, but no. So that's what they're trying to do with this. That's one of the objectives. Allegedly, potentially, I don't know what I have to say. Waco, Texas, 1993. Child Akrop Ives. I'm not sure if you will shut me down for saying that. I don't know if we are still a communist country. Trump took it back yet. Arkansas. Okay, that's. Anyway, it keeps going. Columbine, crisis actors. War games, exercises, drills, hoax, disaster. That links to the Smith-Mundt Act that I was just telling you guys about. So that should be covered in these oversight hearings. Dark Knight, okay, Sandy Hook, yeah. Boston Marathon, Craft. Bataclan, Bloodbath, Bastille Day, Pulse Nightclub, Charlottesville, Unite the Right, Manchester Arena, Las Vegas Pyramid Sacrifice. So the FBI InfraGard was at that area heavily that day, and a bunch of other stuff was going on there. I got invited there that day before that happened. I got invited there and offered a free hotel and a ticket to a concert by an old friend that I hadn't seen in a long time, and all I had to do was get myself to Vegas. And I had all of my shit packed. I was ready to go for like the week. And I was on my way out the door, and I got this gut feeling, like when people are about to get on an airplane, and they're like, "No, I shouldn't go on that airplane." And it's like, that's what I did. I just turned around and went and sat back on my couch, turned the TV on, and drank a beer to make sure that I wouldn't leave, because I don't drink and drive. So I just drank a beer, and I was like, okay, I'm not going anywhere now. And the next day that happened. So, that guy's name was Lance Sanchez. Thanks for the invite, Lance. I'm sure that was a total coincidence that. And then you mentioned something completely out of norm when we were on the phone. You were like, "Man, I can't wait to level up on this one," whatever the fuck that means. So, Jack and Ace, Harvest Ritual, CIA Smuggler, Luxor Hotel, 32nd floor, Tropicana Hotel. All right, so they've got a lot to go over. MK Ultra. And if they don't, I guess we'll all just keep doing it. All right, oh, my voice audio is bad. Yeah. I'm just gonna leave this going for a minute. So it's like one of those records that stops for a while that has like a secret track.
That's why I had to wait for a second. Here's one thing. So for any of you that processed all the information I just rattled off, there's like 9 years of stuff that came out and I missed about, like there's, I covered a lot. Anyway, if you're going to research any of these videos on my YouTube channel from the past and see those interviews with those people like Karen Melton Stewart and John D'Souza and Kristen Megan, she's Air Force bioenvironmental engineer, industrial hygienist, who is the people who create guidelines for personal protective equipment like safety operations for doctors and hospitals. She's one of my interviews. That's a really good one if you're researching COVID and the masks and why they called it COVID and the stuff they spray over the sky. She worked at Tinker Air Force Base. She talks about that. She got targeted in a similar fashion than I did. Yeah, we've got an interview on there. But if you're looking for those videos, I tried to adjust the my dashboard. So when you see everything, I tried to adjust that so you can see those videos first. You can't just go to like the lives. You're just gonna have to scour through them. There's 600 something videos, something like that. Yeah, no. That's it. If I start reading these comments, I'm gonna be here for another hour. I apologize. I'm gonna read through them later, and then maybe I'll do some TikTok videos answering a couple of these or something like that, so direct people to watch this video. I hope that was informational for people that don't fully understand a lot of this stuff. I still don't. There's still parts I don't understand. I don't, the only people that completely understand this whole thing are the people who created it. And I want to see those people testify as, criminal prosecution. We'll see. Probably never happen. I don't know. We're just going to talk. We'll do it. We're probably just going to talk about like wormwood, I shouldn't be negative. That was a good foundation they shared with people today. Thank you all for everything you do. And the ladies look very beautiful today, as always. Is some Bobert, you're single now, Bobert. I'm calling all these people their last names like that. They're in the military. I think that's what they do too, though. Anyway, good Lord. Thanks for doing that. And wow,